Welcome to Riverboat Jack's Antifa Academy. So, you've decided you want to be a true Antifa super soldier. Well, we have a training course on what to expect should the Donald Trump government take power. And, well, we have to be well versed in the tactics of our enemy in order to oppose them. So let's learn together, shall we? So, what we have here is roughly 24 videos. Well, we'll say 23 videos because this last one seems to be a ProPublica summary of all of them. But we're going to watch every single one of these. All right? We are going to see every single one of these. These are videos intended to train government officials in what their job is. So, for those of you who aren't aware, Project 2025 is a plan put together by basically all of the major think tanks that surround the Republican Party. And the main one being the Heritage Foundation. These are all organizations that are funded and backed by billionaires and millionaires who have special interests in things like fracking and who have ideas siding against things like climate change, transgender people. These are basically people who want to destroy the world and demonize minorities in order to make more money. And they funnel money into these think tanks where basically they pay groups of people to come up with ideas of how to popularize or attack popularize conservative values and talking points and attack progressive ones. And the goal of Project 2025 is basically to create a stable of hyper-conservative fanatics who will do what they are told in office. And this is basically intended to be kind of a course given to these people internally to teach them and coach them on what the talking points are supposed to be when they are appointed into office by the Trump administration. So this is essentially like what their vision is for the workforce that will run America once Trump comes into power. So we're going to take a look at these. And the first one here is called Project 2025 Private Training Video, Left-Wing Code Words and Language. All right, let's go. None of these were intended to be public. They've all been leaked by... I have no idea. Presumably someone involved in making these videos. Omega Star, thank you for being a member for 6 months. Project 2025 must not play out. This is so brazen of the right wing. Yeah, I would describe this as essentially a plan for a fascist takeover of America. That this is explicitly the goal. Their stated goal is to gut the deep state, and by the deep state, that's their language, but to gut bureaucracy in order to basically consolidate power in the executive branch, make Donald Trump a dictator. That's essentially it. His first time around, there were Republicans who disagreed with him and said no to some of his policies. The second time around, this Project 2025 is intended to weed out anyone who would tell him no. So, Ms. Milena, thank you for gifting Ron Witt a sub. I appreciate it. Thank you for supporting stream, and thank you to the folks who've supported stream today. I very, very much appreciate it. I think we're about 5 subs towards our goal, so still 25 left. Let's go. And let's begin with this.
Hi, I'm Katie.
Wait, what happens if they lose and try again with someone smarter than Trump? If they lose, they're not going to be able to try again. Like, that's kind of the thing. There's no one currently who can replace Trump. Their closest approximation was Ron DeSantis, and he was basically reviled by everyone outside of Florida. So I don't think they have anyone else who can unify the party in the way that Donald Trump has. If Donald Trump loses, the Republican Party splinters and basically implodes, is my calculation. So this is kind of their last-ditch attempt to hold on to power. All right, so we got Katie Sullivan.
Katie Sullivan, and just a normal American woman. But to the left...
Can I just say, if somebody, like, just right off the bat here, okay, if someone walks up to you and says, "Hello, my name is Katie Sullivan." I almost said Katie Maravich because I've been watching a lot of Dropout TV. Katie Sullivan, and I'm a normal person. They're not a normal person. Run. Run. If somebody has to introduce themselves as a normal person, they're not okay. Hi. My name is Thomas Smith, and I'm a normal man. Is, like, would you trust that? Would you trust that guy? My name is Jonathan Normal, and I'm normal.
That makes me a cisgendered, ethno-imperialist, birthing person with pronouns she, her.
There's nothing normal about this. There's nothing normal about this, guys. Are you animated tonight? God, I wish I lived in a cartoon, but no.
Words like that are quite a mouthful, and it's one America needs to spit out before...
It really is delivering this kind of energy.
I don't know why we're doing this, Lauren.
It's because the Ice Stars did it earlier as well.
Yeah, but we're not ice stars, Lauren. We're just normal men.
What do you mean, normal men?
We're just innocent men.
We're just normal men. We're just innocent men.
where we choke on it.
In the eyes of many in the world, this every 4-year ceremony we accept as normal is nothing less than a miracle.
In America, we understand that a nation is only living as long as it is striving.
What does that mean?
Only a few generations have been granted the role of defending freedom in its hour of maximum danger.
This great nation will endure as it has endured, will revive and will prosper.
Whether we go forward together with courage or turn back to policies that weakened our economy, diminished our leadership in the world, America's future will be in your hands.
You'll never make it through these? Your disbelief in me only strengthens my resolve. Hidden meanings, the monsters in the attic. I just want you all to remember the title of this video is Left-Wing Code Words and Language. They're literally referring to leftist language as monsters. I get the feeling I'm gonna have a lot of things to say about how hypocritical these people are, being afraid and angry and needing a safe space from words. As a trans person, I feel like they're about to get extremely sensitive to language here in a way that, I'm sorry, I can't relate to. I can't relate to you having this hypocritical stance on language, but you know, it's just a feeling I get. Maybe It'll be fine. It's not gonna be fine.
Bethany, are your children afraid of monsters in the attic or under the bed?
Yeah, they have been, but we always tell them that they do not exist.
Today we have news. There are monsters in Uncle Sam's attic.
It's the words,
What?
phrases, definitions that are used, which may look like one
Why does Uncle Sam have a bunch of words, phrases, and definitions chained in his attic? What is this metaphor? What is this? What are you doing? Why?
thing, but absolutely mean another. And it is scary.
During this training, we will identify the problem, discuss examples from our time in the federal government, as well as the 5 cross-cutting principles of the current administration. We will teach you how to unwind the words and phrases that have been so artfully layered into every document in the federal government. You can
God, this is like, I know I reference the movie Kung Pao too much, but this is literally like the training of Wimp Lo, who got trained wrong as a joke. You know, like that's what this feels like to me. Like, we're training you all wrong as a joke. Haha. Until it's not a joke anymore.
You can do this in any role at any level of seniority. This training will prepare you to make changes and fast. The left continually pivots and assaults definitions and phrases. They twist words and phrases to support subconscious acceptance of a philosophy that was rejected or is against the grain of human existence, like what is a woman? Perhaps the most effective tool.
But
Ms. Milena, thank you for the 5 gifted tier 1 subs. I appreciate the support for today's stream. Got 20 subs to go until my outfit change. Let's go. Anyone know who these 2 women are? This lady was the former acting attorney general under Donald Trump, and this lady was the former head of U.S. Aid.
The left wields is their ability to engage in constant subliminal advertising through their narrative, words, and phrases.
Oh, now we're acknowledging that words can mean things. You know, when Donald Trump says anything, it's just he's a straight talker. But when the left says things, they have secret other meanings. Like subtext. Ooh, scary.
Marxism became socialism. Then,
Oh, God. I'll let her finish this sentence and then we'll just talk briefly.
democratic socialism, and is now represented by the terms social justice and equity.
No! Wrong! 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 God! So there's this guy named Karl Marx, all right? And he had this friend named Engels. And Engels gave Karl Marx money to just, like, go around writing political theory. And Karl Marx decided that his political theory that he was going to dedicate his life to articulating was the relationship between employers and employees and where actual value comes from, okay? This is what is known as the labor theory of value, where workers are the ones who create value and bosses then skim that value off the top by paying a wage to their workers, to their employees. And the difference between the wage and the value of what was created that then is sold, that is the profit. Okay, that is the essential theory that Marx articulated. There's a lot more to it. I'm skimming over a lot because I sense we're gonna have to go through a lot of bullshit here. But essentially, Karl Marx articulated this economic relationship and speculated that there would be, in the future, better ways of organizing labor that would be more equitable. This then led to the creation of what's called the Communist Manifesto, which is basically articulating and outlining this idea where we could move towards and embrace a society in which people's work was not then exploited by the wage labor dynamic. And instead, people would work and would be like able to reap the benefits of that work, you know, from each according to his ability to each according to their need, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. And this in turn led to, you know, the idea of communism or socialism. These terms were used very interchangeably for a while, but eventually diverged. And what you got was kind of this embracing of totalitarianism and authoritarianism under Stalin and Mao, which went in a very different direction that basically bastardized communist ideas into what became known as Maoism or Stalinism, and both eventually embracing state capitalism, wherein the state regulates markets and essentially takes over the role of the employer. But that doesn't fundamentally change the worker-boss dynamic that is at play that Marx originally articulated. And so you have this idea of socialism, this idea that workers should be able to effectively own what they create. And one of the ideas of this being what I advocate for, democratic worker co-ops, wherein employees collectively own their workplaces and democratically make decisions about how those workplaces are run. Okay? But there then became two branching ideas of what communism or socialism would be, right? And eventually, because of how the United States has branded it here with propaganda and such, we came to call the totalitarian view of, like, the totalitarian bloc, rather, of USSR and China as communist versus socialists, which were effectively this branch of the original debate. And the original debate was, should there be an evolutionary socialism or a revolutionary socialism? Revolutionary socialism being, you know, socialists should rise up and violently overthrow the government, seize power, and then from a position of top-down hierarchical change, you know, see through changes to a more socialist or communist society. Whereas evolutionary socialists, of which I would consider myself one, believe in working through the democratic means in order to organize people into, you know, willing participants in a democratic system. Because that's effectively what we're doing. If we can't democratically organize in electoral politics, we sure as shit can't democratically organize in the workplace. So, I think that working through democracy is an excellent avenue for socialist ideas. And I just want to say here that what she's articulated got like, oh, Marxism became socialism, and socialism became democratic socialism, and then it became like social justice, and no. In a way, perhaps if you squint at this, you can kind of see what she's getting at, insofar as like the ideas of Marx are that every worker is valuable, every person is valuable, every individual is capable of creation and is in turn like a wonderful addition to this diverse tapestry of human life. And because workers like should support one another, like we should value that uniqueness. We should value the differences between us. and incorporate that into our broader lives. And in turn, that kind of ethos that originated, mind you, from that economic theory was integrated into certain social movements. Now, I doubt that she's going to say this, but in the United States, what played a huge role in kind of popularizing these ideas in the modern era was the civil rights movement. Martin Luther King Jr. If a lot of you may remember, he was killed while essentially doing his second phase. You know, the first phase of the civil rights movement was to, protect, was to end Jim Crow, protect voting rights for African Americans. A lot of us know that. The end part, before he was assassinated, was to protect working people in America. It was the People's Campaign. It was, intended to promote the well-being of workers across the United States. And so when she's talking about, and that from that directly, social justice comes about. The idea of an equitable society became rooted in the American kind of zeitgeist, the spirit of the times. And so when she's saying, yeah, secretly it's all Marxism, it's not secretly Marxism. Social justice is a different thing than what Karl Marx articulated. Karl Marx was a political and economic theorist. Okay? He wasn't talking about social justice. He was talking about economies. He's talking about labor relations. Now, do some of those ideas then, like if you extrapolate them into wider society, lead to certain conclusions? Absolutely. But I think it hits a lot different when you actually know the sequence of events and what is actually being talked about here outside of like the scary use of buzzwords. Because I know a lot of conservatives got really, really scared about terms like Marxism, communism, socialism. Okay? They got scared of those terms. And now that same fear is trying to be applied to, conservatives are trying to apply that same fear to social justice and equity and DEI, And at the end of the day, what this means and what scares conservatives the most is a united working class. A united working class standing arm in arm, black and white, united against this capitalist class of oligarchs who would seek to rob you and your family of all things that are good and just. The kind of people who, in order to line their pockets, would see you and your family die and used as asphalt to like recover the roads. All right? And that's who Donald Trump represents. The people who want to grind up your corpses to make their lawns just that much more green. That's who these people work for. So just so we're clear, who's the scary, out of touch weirdo here?
This is perhaps the most scary of all.
Katie, what brings to mind is the quote, "He who controls the language rules the world." It's attributed to Joseph Stalin and other tyrants. And George Orwell stated, "He who controls language controls culture."
Just as an FYI, George Orwell, a socialist.
Even more, Hitler and others lived by the creed. If you repeat a lie often enough, people will believe it. Without doubt, it's true.
Anyway, Donald Trump definitely won the 2020 election. He definitely won it. He won the election. He did that. He won the election. Don't read anything into me saying that many, many times. He won the election.
Language is a powerful and often controlling tool.
Career bureaucrats and the left are also using language to change culture and gain more and more authority, thereby upsetting the balance.
Can I just say, no individual, no group of people is like, we're setting out to change culture. No one does that. Okay, culture just changes. That's how time works. We live in a linear time, okay? Time, one thing happens followed by another, okay? You flick a domino, they all start falling over, all right? It's linear time. No one has to set out to change culture for culture to change. That just happens because people live and die by virtue of us living within linear time.
Of power envisioned by our founding fathers. This, in essence, weaponized language against the American people.
This training is vital to you as a political appointee. If there's one thing you take from
this, it's you should probably do better work at coloring your eyebrows. Because when you have very white, aggressively white, alabaster skin, it's very easy for your blonde hair to just kind of blend into your skin and make it look like you have no eyebrows whatsoever.
This training, it is to know when you start your job as a political appointee.
Oh God, Mr. Anderson, thank you for the 10 gifted memberships. I very much appreciate that. Thank you so goddamn much. Also, Ms. Milena, thank you for the 2 gifted subs earlier. I very much appreciated those as well. We're doing some serious stuff at the moment, so let's go. The notification sounds are being turned off. I apologize.
Every single word, phrase, and acronym must be vetted, and you must determine what implications every word has before publishing or...
Man, what's crazy to me, and I know I'm being real pause champion here, and I'm just going to be doing that because, frankly, if we listen to too much of this, your brain's just going to slowly smooth like a Zamboni on an ice rink, okay? What's really weird about this for me is that I'm an English major, all right? I have a degree in English literature, and frankly, everyone told me for a lot of my life that was useless and pointless, and I wasted time and effort and money going to school, all right? And yet, I've fallen into a career where media literacy is in high demand, so thank you, everyone, for supporting me and financially supporting my work. But what I'm going to say here is that it's wild to me to see this kind of video from conservatives essentially trying to teach media literacy, but like an evil version of media literacy, where it's like, oh, did someone use they, them pronouns? That means that piece of legislation is evil and tainted by gender ideology. Like that's essentially what they're trying to do. They're trying to teach people that the dog whistles that they use for like trans people or Jewish people or whatever need to be like applied to law. And it's a cartoonishly evil, frankly. Yeah, OS Crane, that is a perfect term for it. I was trying to figure out what to call it. It's weaponized media illiteracy. That's what it is. You know, they're being trained wrong with a malevolence guiding their illiteracy that is kind of staggering, right? It's weaponized illiteracy, and it's bizarre to see. It is like looking into just this upside down world. where everyone's like walking around being like, sky's looking really purple today, and you look up and it's blue, and you're like, but it's not purple, and they're like, how could you say that? You're disgusting. Kill him. Something like that.
Moving forward with any official or internal document.
All right, so now that we have identified the problem, let's give the viewers a taste of what we saw in the Trump.
Yeah, just as an FYI, remember, there were bullet points at the beginning of this. Identify the problem. And the problem that they have identified thus far is that some bills might have, like, gender-inclusive language. Some bills might, like, talk about social justice and equity, and thus are evil and must be purged.
Trump administration.
Yeah, no, this is literal 1984. This is like what 1984 is to people who actually understood what the socialist George Orwell was writing about in 1984.
Bethany and I were both part of a coordinated effort in the Trump administration focused on trying to take back hijacked language and definitions across the United States government and even at our engagements in the United Nations. From our experiences, we will teach you how to identify the left's progressive language, scrutinize career staff compositions for dangerous language, and how to combat their manipulation.
Yeah, just as an FYI here, how to identify the left's progressive language. Basically, how can you maliciously interpret anything that is written in any kind of, like, bureaucratic document or law? How to scrutinize career staff compositions for dangerous language. Basically, how to censor your employees. How to make sure that you are crushing any kind of dissent or inclusive language in your workplace. To make sure no one who thinks different from you can work in the government. And how to combat their manipulative efforts ensuring clarity of definition and conservative intention. And I think that last point here is the real important part about what the actual point of this is, which is how can you replace their language with conservative language that changes the meaning of what was said to reflect conservative ideology. Basically, how can you make the bureaucracy of the US government more explicitly bigoted to make sure people who are different from you do not feel welcome in government?
Manipulative efforts, ensuring clarity of definition and conservative intention. Bethany and I are going to give you some examples of what we mean by this need to always ensure clarity, but in no way are we able to foresee the future and anticipate how the progressive left will continue to co-opt even more words and definitions. We can tell you the words and phrases being used today, but by the time you enter the administration, these examples may be obsolete. This will help you spot crucial issue areas to pay close attention to.
Oh yeah, of course she's reading her lines. Like, this is a 50-minute long video.
We do not know what they will be calling men and women by the time you begin your tenure.
Yeah, they might be calling men glorp glops and women glorp glimps. We don't know.
With the administration, the left is trying to dismantle America and rebuild it in their own image by using the art of deception, and words and definitions are their weapon of choice.
What's up, my glorp glips?
Words change culture. Bethany, with your extensive experience with both domestic,
I want more than anything, and I know we're not going to get it, but I want more than anything for her dead, fish-eyed stare to look into the camera and talk about how Skibbity Toilet is changing American culture. I want that more than anything. I want that so much. And I know we're not going to get it. I know that neither of these women know what the fuck a skibbity toilet is.
In international policy issues, and in light of your role in leadership positions at USAID, can you walk us through some examples of how the left uses words, weaponizes really, words and definitions? And if you could do that in a context of the cross-cutting issues that are identified in the mandate for leadership, and really as we understand the cross-cutting issues were identified because they are the pillars of the Biden administration. And so they've been layered into virtually every document in the federal government. If you could walk us through some of those examples.
Wow. Yeah, all of this progressive language has been put into all the governments under Biden. All the government documents have progressive language in them. Guess we'll just have to get rid of all of those, huh? Like that's what they're saying. I want you to understand. That's what they're saying here. That's why they're training. That's why this is one of the internal training videos, right? They're saying there's just so much progressive language in all of these bureaucratic documents. We're going to have to get rid of all of them and completely rewrite all of them. We're going to have to rewrite all the government documents to reflect conservative values, i.e., fundamentally change them and what they mean, i.e., do a fascist coup.
I think it would be incredibly helpful.
I'd be happy to, absolutely. The 5 topic areas for today's discussion are centered on women, children, and families.
Valerian Damocles Marcellus, I will indeed relay that you like the autistic brewer's name and joke. You're welcome.
Family, environment, human rights and border security, the gender cult, and equity.
Okay. Can we stop and can we make some guesses here? Okay. So, number one, they're obviously going to be talking about, like, how you need to use more heavy-handed language, like, instead of talking about, like, abortion, they're going to be like, you need to call it child murder. You need to call it child homicide. That's what we need to call it. Environment? I want to say that they're going to say, like, you can't talk about climate change, but I feel like that would even be too blunt. Like, that's too, like, flat earthy, I think. I think they're going to go with, like, oil is good, and, like, they're going to do, like, a quasi climate change denial. Like, oil is actually good for the environment. Like, Jordan Peterson has been talking about this, how oil and CO2 actually warms up the earth in a way that, like, is beneficial for plants, and that in turn is good for all of us. So really, we need to drill, baby, drill, because more oil means more carbon, and that's just more good things for us. I'm going to guess that's the direction they're going with this. Human rights and border security, they're just going to be like, mass deportation is good. Gender cult, I feel like is pretty self-explanatory. Equity, that's got to be their repackaging of DEI. That's going to be like we should be able to call black people the N-word. That's essentially the bullet points, I think. Okay, that's my guess. That's my guess.
The first topic, women, children, and family. I worked on international issues and very closely followed the language presented at the United Nations. And I saw up close and personal how this indeed is true. Language is used to control culture.
Language is used to communicate ideas. And culture changes because different people have different ideas. And over time, the ideas that gain, like, prominence and acceptance change. It's not used to control culture. That implies that there's, like, an evil cabal, and frankly, I'm sure these people believe that. there's like this evil group of people who is like handing down decrees to like Beyonce about what the lyrics in her songs should be. Like that's the kind of worldview they have. But yeah.
I'll never forget a conversation I had with the chief of staff at USAID. We are trying to provide alternative language for the highly controversial phrase.
Well, guys, you can tell she ain't right, okay? Because she completely forgot to draw on her eyebrows. Remember to do that before you go on stream, folks. I had to learn that the hard way.
Comprehensive Sexuality Education, or CSE, which at the United Nations had come to mean not just typical sex education, but instead had been morphed into teaching and normalizing sex at very early ages, even
Yeah.
as young as preschool.
Okay. As somebody who is familiar with a lot of teachers, like I know a lot of teachers personally, and my partner is a teacher and taught for like 10 years, like, they aren't teaching preschoolers how to have sex. Okay? The form sex ed takes when you're in preschool is at most stranger danger. This is the no-no zone. Okay? That's like the extent of it in preschool. When they're talking about sex ed in like elementary school, they're talking about this is what different parts of your body are called. And that's specifically so that, like, if someone, if a kid is sexually abused, they can articulate what happened to them. Which, in turn, helps to catch more, like, sexual predators. All right? If you can't articulate what happened, then it's a lot harder to tell someone what happened. And on top of that, at most, at the tail end of elementary school, you might get a class that tells kids what sex is, like how babies are made. It might not go into sexual safety, but it will talk about, like, this is where babies come from. They're not delivered by a stork. Then you get into middle school, and in middle school, that's when, like, the sex ed safety classes start. Because kids start having sex in middle school. They start experimenting. And frankly, just letting you all know this, in case you don't know, there have been studies about this. If you do not teach your kids about sex, if you do not teach kids about safe sex, they will teach each other what they think sex is. So you have to ask yourself, who do you want educating your child about safe sexual practices? Do you want an adult who has, like, a curriculum about the subject that is based on science and facts? Or do you want Jimmy Nesbitt from, like, 3 blocks down who, like, eats his boogers and, like, his entire experience is, like, shoving G.I. Joe action figures up his butt? Like, who do you want teaching your kid about how to safely, like, handle their body? Because guess what? A lot of conservatives will be like, well, that's my job. Well, guess what? Unfortunately, you guys are too chicken shit to actually teach your kids about sex. Too many of you are too scared to have those conversations with your own kids. And so you leave it to the school. But you don't want the school to teach that because you think it's your duty, and you think that you should wait until they're 18 years old to have that conversation about sex. Except here's the problem. A lot of kids, if they don't learn it from you, they don't learn it from their teacher, they're going to learn it from each other. They aren't going to know how to be safe. So, I know that I don't want other kids teaching children about how to have sex. I know I can't trust parents to teach their kids about sex, because too many of you conservatives out there, you think it's like evil to teach your kid about their own body. So, the best solution here is just let the schools do it. Have a school do it with age-appropriate sex ed for each level, for each grade level. That's it. That's all you got to do. It's not hard, not rocket science. It's not hard to understand why it's a good idea. And we know that in places where these policies are implemented, there's a lower rate of sexual assault of children because they're more aware of what that is. My wife was raised by conservatives and she wasn't allowed to attend sex ed. I had to teach her how to practice safe sex because they wouldn't let the schools do it, and they didn't do it either. Yeah. A lot of parents, a lot of conservative parents, basically are like, they'll figure it out. And then that's how you get, like, people who are in their 20s that are like, women can't have orgasms. That's how you get people in, like, their 30s who think that, like, women can just choose not to get pregnant. You know, they just flex the anti-pregnancy muscle in their bodies and they just don't get pregnant. That's what these people do, okay? That's how you get sitting politicians who don't know how women's bodies work or how reproduction works. That's how you get like these dipshits in office. Can I find this here? Yeah, here.
Just watch this. This is from the Idaho legislature. They start talking about colonoscopies, and things just go downhill from there. I swear we did not edit this. This really happened today, because this is what today is like in the news.
This is from 2015.
You mentioned the risk of colonoscopy. Can that be done by drugs?
Mr. Chairman, Representative Barbieri, it can not be done by drugs. It can, however, be done remotely, where you swallow a pill, and this pill has a little camera, and it makes its way through your intestines, and those images are uploaded to a doctor who's often thousands of miles away, who then interprets that.
Follow up, Mr. Chairman. Barbieri. Can this same procedure then be done in a pregnancy? Swallowing a camera and helping the doctor determine what the situation is with the...
Mr. Chairman and Representative, it cannot be done in pregnancy simply because when you swallow a pill, it would not end up in the vagina.
Fascinating. That certainly makes sense, doctor.
That's a guy in a position to make laws about women's bodies, about what should and should not be done between you and your doctor. And that is the kind of world these two women want to live in.
For girls who became pregnant, that abortion was a preferable method of birth control.
Just, can I...
Very early ages, even as young as preschool. And for girls who became pregnant, that abortion was a preferable method of birth control.
Yeah, I'm gonna let you know why. When a young girl who is 10 years old, say, gets pregnant, the reason why abortion is a preferable form of birth control is because often a 10-year-old, thanks to people like yourselves, isn't aware of how pregnancy works and isn't aware that they're pregnant in time to do something like, say, take Plan B or something, which, by the way, they also want to make illegal. And if that pregnancy is far enough along, then really there are only two options once it is discovered. It is either that 10-year-old girl carries a baby to term, or they get an abortion. Those are the only two options after a certain point in time, okay? And the reason why abortion is preferable of those two options for a 10-year-old, just in case you guys don't know this, because again, these people want to live in a world where you receive no sex education whatsoever, and, you know, you can become a Republican politician thinking that, like, you can swallow a pill and it will go to your vagina, okay? If a 10-year-old goes through with a pregnancy, the risk of them dying goes exponentially up, okay? It's already very dangerous to give birth. That is a dangerous thing. You can die if you are a perfectly healthy adult woman, okay? If you are a 10-year-old, your body is literally not ready to give birth. It can rupture your internal organs. You can bleed to death. You can, like, have your intestines ripped apart. Very, very high chance. Happened to a childhood friend of my dad, says Shabriri's Woe. Yeah. This isn't rocket science. These people just hate you and want you and your children to suffer and die if it means that their Republican overlords can get into office and make more money.
Back to the conversation with the chief of staff. He suggested several alternatives, but each time I told him that, unfortunately, his recommended edit was also interpreted as CSE. Frustrated, he vented. They have literally co-opted the English language. And it was
By the way, CSE is just their scary-sounding acronym for child sexual education.
At that moment that I realized that the progressive left is controlling the language, redefining definitions, and by doing so, are ruling the world. On a positive.
Yeah, her awakening to this position was literally finding out that children were educated on how to safely interact with their own bodies.
No, despite all the angst that
Sorry, comprehensive, not child sexual education. Comprehensive sex ed.
We did succeed on that negotiation. DevEx published an article with the headline, "No mention of reproductive rights in declarations out of G7 development ministerial." You can read more about this in the course materials section. Now, let's talk about the word abortion. The left got very creative years ago.
Oh, hey! Nailed it. Let's talk about abortion. They throw up the women, children, and family.
Started using different words to make abortion sound a little less like murder. For example,
I just want to clear this before we go on. Abortion doesn't sound like murder, which is why we call it abortion instead of murder. We have a different word for it because it's a different thing. The left doesn't need to come up with, kinder ways of saying it because we already have a word for it. It's abortion. What the right wants to do is define abortion as murder. They want to replace the word abortion with murder. John Bainbridge, Jack, you weren't wrong that this is the opposite of media literacy. I feel like I'm getting dumber by the minute. Don't think of this as feeling like you're getting dumber. Think of this as understanding the warped worldview of your adversary. Okay? We need to understand what these people want to do in order to articulate it to other people, in order to be able to have a conversation and tell someone, yeah, it's actually this bad. This is actually how bad Project 2025 is.
Sexual and reproductive health, reproductive rights, sexual and reproductive health services, reproductive health services, sexual and reproductive health.
Just want to throw out there, the reason these things are called sexual and reproductive health, reproductive rights, sexual and reproductive health services, health services, sexual and reproductive health and reproductive rights. The reason all of those things are called that is because they are different things than abortion. They are about, hey, how to use a condom. Hey, I've got weird things on my genitals. Do I need to go to the hospital? Hey, I need information about diabetes. Hey, like these are services and ideas that are not limited to abortion. Hence why there is an umbrella term under which abortion exists. This is not like a scheme to make people think like it's not murder, because it's just not murder. That's why, again, we have a different word called abortion. This isn't, again, not rocket science. Different words mean different things.
And reproductive rights, sexual and reproductive health and rights. All of these include abortion. For years, we knew that the terms above that I just mentioned had been used and that they were code for abortion. The left...
They're not code for abortion. They just include abortion in them. Like, again, this is like saying, yes, when someone's talking about crime, they're talking about murder. It's like, no. Actually, that's an umbrella term. Crime is a large term that incorporates a lot of different activities, not just murder, not just jaywalking. It's come on now.
Left and the career bureaucrats at state and USAID told us, oh, no, no, no.
Yes, the Mayo handmaiden is being disingenuous.
When I was negotiating with Canada for the G7 Development Ministerial.
Yeah, I just want to point out, I just want to ask you guys, does this lady seem like a normal person? Does this lady seem normal to you guys? Not at all. She talks and dresses like a cultist. She looks like one of the women who is trapped in a bunker in Unbreakable Kimmy Schmidt. That's a deep cut for all you olds at my audience. That's right. Unbreakable Kimmy Schmidt came out so long ago. You're old now.
I said, well, can we just use these terms and add that does not include abortion?
True.
And their response was telling. They said, but it does include abortion. Even with that admission, I had a difficult time convincing political appointees that these terms were co-opted. Another example hits closer to home and highlights how imperative it is for
oh God, how old is that show now? It's almost a decade old.
Political appointees to ensure definitions are correct and explicitly followed. 3 days after President Trump took office on January 20th.
Okay, that was good, Very Knifey Duck. This background extra from Midsommar over here making me crazy.
2017, he issued a presidential memorandum regarding the Mexico City policy. This became known as the Protecting Life and Global Health Assistance Policy, or the expanded Mexico City policy. When I arrived at USAID in June 2017, I was the first political appointee in a bureau outside the front office and the sixth political appointee in the building. Despite President Trump issuing a presidential memorandum at the very onset of his administration to immediately change course and to protect life, even months later, his guidance was ignored. I remember hearing careers refer to this policy and even seeing documents that referred to it as the global gag order. I immediately told the career staff that we do not refer to it as the global gag order, but instead appropriately as the Protecting Life and Global Health Assistance policy. To some, it may seem inconsequential, but it actually was completely undermining the president and the American people who had elected President Trump. So opposed to this policy change, the left actually started a new organization and an international movement called She Decides, which invited NGOs.
Yeah, basically, this is a lot of gobbledygook here, but the underlying message that she's getting at here is that in the past, there was a policy called the Mexico City policy, and it basically prevented the United States from giving aid to any organization that supported either fully or, adjacently abortion. Any kind of abortion counseling or services, anything like that. If it was at all related to abortion, the USAID could not fund it. And that in turn perpetuated a lot of suffering in a lot of places around the world that did not need to be doing that. And she's upset about that because that rule was overturned. Yeah, by the way, I'm just going to read this off here. It blocked U.S. federal funding for non-governmental organizations, NGOs, that provided abortion counseling or referrals, advocated to decriminalize abortion, or expanded abortion services. So, like, even if you were like, hey, maybe women should be able to get abortions without going to prison or being executed, you were blocked from receiving U.S. aid. I think that's pretty messed up. I think that's kind of insane. I think that when you are out there saying, hey, people in other countries, their children, if they get impregnated, they should be forced to carry that baby to term. If a 6-year-old in another country gets pregnant, they should have to have that baby. That's fucked up. That's almost, I can't think of anything more evil than that, frankly. These people are in it for the suffering.
And other foreign governments to join and actively promote abortion services and advocacy, essentially joining together to try to counter.
Yeah, because other people might make different decisions than you would. Like, at the end of the day, they want to have the right to tell you that you can't do, you cannot do something with your body. All right? They want to be there and be like, actually, if you don't want to give birth, that's too bad. We're gonna strap you down to this table and force you to give birth in 9 months, all right? I don't think there's any justification for that. You might say, oh, well, they're not strapping them down to a table. They might as well. What difference does it make to you? You know, like the suffering is the point here. You think at the end of the day, the state should be empowered by any and all means, up to and including strapping down like 10-year-old impregnated girls to a table and forcing them to give birth. You think that that is something the state should be able to do if it means it prevents abortion. And I think that's deeply weird. I think it's deeply evil. So how about you mind your own goddamn business and make the choices you want to make for your own body, while acknowledging that it doesn't give you the right to make choices for other people's bodies.
Honor what the Trump administration was doing to protect life. Language matters.
Bethany, it's incredible how the left is able...
God, I keep forgetting her name is Bethany. One of the most banal and evil names. Sorry to all of you good Bethanies out there, okay? You guys are, it is now incumbent on all of the good Bethanies out there to become the head of USAID and undo the wrongs your evil twin did. There we go.
To make killing children and babies a pro-movement. I mean, their narrative is just incredible and so opposite of what the reality of the situation is. We see that also with environment, right? So I remember when I was in school, in elementary school, we were taught that we were all going to be frozen over by an ice age. And of course, this was terrifying. And then in the 80s, it was acid rain. We were all going to die from the acid rain. And then it moved to global warming, which I think, you know, most of the people watching this tape will remember. That was during the Obama administration.
I hate to break it to you, lady, but science gets updated as we have new facts upon which to build the foundations of science. So, yeah, it turned out we weren't going to die in an ice age. But acid rain was a very real problem that was only solved because we put in place environmental protections that stopped companies from dumping acidic chemicals into the environment. That was then evaporating into the atmosphere and raining down as acid rain. Okay? Like, the reason we no longer have to worry about acid rain is because we did something about that. They literally think the greatest strength of science is a weakness of it. Well, that's because, again, guys, these are fascists. These are fascists, all right? Like, that's what they do. They are anti-empiricist. Part of the nature of their ideology is an inability to make scientific claims because they are anti-empiricist. They are against the very foundation of science.
Yes. And then science comes along and disproves the global warming theory in large part, and we have one of the most...
Oh. Okay, so I was wrong. I gave them too much credit. I gave them too much credit. I didn't think they were going to go full climate change denial. But I guess essentially being adjacent to flat earthers was I overestimated them. Incredibly, I overestimated their abilities. So I need to be very clear about this, guys. There is no science that has disproved global warming. We've actually known about the effects of global warming for like 150 years. Can I? Yeah. All right. So, in 1859, John Tyndall discovered that carbon dioxide was a greenhouse gas. Okay? 1859. Since 1859, we have known that carbon dioxide is something that, if put into a certain atmosphere at enough quantities, can produce a warming effect. That's why we call them greenhouse gases. And even at the time, people were like, well, if you burned enough of them, you could presumably heat the planet up. At the time, 1859, all right? And that idea, that line of thinking was codified, okay, in 1896 by a guy named Svante Arrhenius, or Arrhenius, in Sweden, where he was like, actually, yeah, we're burning a lot of wood and oil and coal, and that's going to add up. We have known for over a century about the effects of global warming. And this lady's here trying to tell you that Obama made up global warming. I mean, for fuck's sake, guys, an inconvenient truth came out, like, prior to the Bush administration or during the Bush administration. Like, Obama didn't make up global warming. We had documentaries about it already. like, I don't know. Like, during? Thanks. So it's like, we have had an idea here of what's going on for a very long time. Oil and gas companies had research on warming effects being done in like the 1940s and 50s. Like, this is some inherit the wind shit, okay? This is some, like, you can't teach evolution in the classroom because that would mean we came from monkeys, and that's gross. That's what this is. This is reactionary, anti-science, anti-empiricist hogwash. But it is being fueled into power by a fascist movement that is in part fueled by its science denialism.
Most frigid winters ever known. And then the next thing you know, they're calling it climate change. Now, I always understand.
We did not have one of the most frigid winters you've ever known. Like, I know I don't have to spend a ton of time debunking this, but here, can I get the graph here? All right. Here, that's not a graph. God, why? Why are you doing this to me? There we go. Just gonna throw this out there, guys. Really? Why? Okay. Just gonna throw this out there. This isn't even an updated graph. So, we have a rough idea of global temperatures over like the last 10,000 years. And the red part here is from 1961 to 1990. Yeah. I think there might be a correlation here. I think here, you know what? Let's take a smaller look. Okay? Let's take a smaller look at how things have been going, all right? So here's average global temperatures, all right? Going back to, year zero, okay? Oh, look, going around. Oh, here's the medieval warm period, everybody. The medieval warm period. That's so nice. When it warmed up a little bit. Then you have the Little Ice Age. Now, a lot of people, by the way, believe that the Little Ice Age, and I have done some reading on this. It seems like it has some substantiation. The Little Ice Age might have been done, might have happened due to reforestation following population collapse in the Americas, following like the conquistadors, etc., etc., etc. But a Little Ice Age, global temperatures go down. So far, this is really reflecting a lot of the conservative rhetoric. Sometimes temperature goes up, sometimes it goes down. Look at how consistent it is, everybody. Look at this. Global warming, whatever. Oh. Hmm. Yeah, it seems the Industrial Revolution really took us in a different direction here, huh? Now I know I don't have to spend a ton of time talking about the science of this with you guys, because I basically gave you a brief explanation of how this all works. I welcome you to go through all of it yourselves. Fascinating studies. It's really cool how they like get the ice cores, like figure out what the temperature was back in the day. Very cool stuff. But a lot of it is indicating that this is an ongoing process, and if we do nothing, our children and our great-grandchildren and our grandchildren, of course, will all suffer as a result. So, we should probably do something about that. Can I get a link? I mean, sure, this... Here you go. I don't know how helpful these sources will be. Oh, actually, I can't post a link that long into YouTube chat. Sorry. It is not letting me do that. It's weird. But you can find this chart in particular. Actually, here. Da 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 da. Here's a better link. There you go.
That climate change meant seasons. Our climate does change all the time, but
no, I never want to use a URL shortener that can be used. Guys, if you ever see a shortened URL in my chat, don't click it, okay? I do not trust them because people hide malicious shit in URL shorteners in chat. I would much rather the transparency.
Of course, that's not what's meant by the left.
There you go.
What do you think about all of about the left's words and definitions in the environment?
It's a great point, Katie. They don't stop. Climate change allegedly is everywhere, and if
yes, that is what. Yes, it is. It is a global phenomenon. It's talking about the average temperature of the planet. That would definitionally be everywhere.
The American people elect a conservative president, his administration will have to eradicate climate change references from absolutely everywhere.
Why? The science backs it up. This is like saying this is like saying we need to stop doing crop rotation in the fields because there's no science to back it. It's backed up by science, man. I don't know what to tell you. I don't know what to tell you here. We just need to get rid of all mentions of cellular mitosis. You know, we need to remove all mentions of germ theory from our government documents. What are you talking about? You know, we need to remove any mention of dinosaurs from any of our national parks because dinosaurs are really dragons created by God. What are you talking about? No, this is literal death cult doomsday shit. This is like we've put the blinders, you know, we're boiling you in the pot. All right? Like this is insanity. By the way, in case any of you thought I was pulling anything out of my ass with that you know, dinosaur bit I was doing, I should just let you know that people like this genuinely, truly believe that the world is only 6,000 years old and that the bones of dinosaurs are actually the bones of giants that they call the Nephilim. All right? They believe that either they're the bones of giants or they're the bones of dragons and unicorns and stuff. They genuinely believe this, And they want you to be forced to believe it too. Yeah, they go to dinosaur museums and show humans walking around. Yeah, it's insane. It's insane.
And according to our intelligence community, the #1 threat facing our country today is, drumroll, climate change. Not Russia, not China, not AI, climate change.
Yeah. What is difficult about this to understand?
This shows how the federal government is all in on this issue. And climate change activists wield a lot of power. This is an issue to pay.
But you haven't shown that they're wrong. You're like relying on your facial expression to convey that they're wrong, but you haven't said how they're wrong. Like, yeah, they're all focused on climate change issues because things like climate change are going to raise sea levels. Because I don't know if these people know this, but when it gets hotter out, ice melts. And when more ice melts, that means there's more water. And when enough ice melts, and that all goes into the ocean, guess what? The water levels go up. And I don't know if you guys know this. I don't know if you guys know this. Miami is 6 feet above sea level. 6.5 feet. All right? How high will the oceans rise if the ice caps melt? 230 feet. Just FYI. That's why they're talking about how it's an existential threat. If all of the Earth's ice caps melt because, you know, it's climate change on a global scale, the oceans will rise by 230 feet. Just out of curiosity, what's the average elevation of Florida? Anyone want to take a guess? It's 100 feet above sea level. Which is also roughly the elevation of many other states that are currently coastal, like Louisiana. So, I struggle to really wrap my head. Like, you don't have to be a genius to understand that when it gets hotter out, ice melts. Okay? You don't have to be a genius to understand that. And you don't have to be a genius to understand that when ice melts, it goes somewhere. The water goes somewhere. Okay? Goes into the ocean. And when enough of that goes into the ocean, makes it go higher. And when it goes higher, well, it covers more stuff on land that is below how high that water goes. The highest point in Florida is only 345 feet. So interesting. So, just throwing out there, yeah, a little bit of an existential threat if we don't get our shit together. At least to the people of Florida. But, you know, maybe Republicans don't care about Florida.
Attention to, as it has infiltrated every part of the federal government. Now, when I think of climate change, I immediately think of population control, don't you?
No, that's not a normal thing to think about when talking about climate change. That's actually a deeply weird place for your brain to go when talking about. Honestly, it's a deeply weird place for your brain to go on anything. But I think that this just reflects the fascist state of mind. You know? The fascist state of mind is effectively, oh, well, things change, time to control the population. That's where their brains go. You know? They're conditioned to believe in this authoritarianism. Yes, in logic, I know information doesn't mean anything to them, but I'm making this segment for you guys and for people outside of my community who might come across it on YouTube. Hello, welcome. Please hit the subscribe button and the like button, and maybe consider coming and watching me live sometime, because I'm pretty neat, and we could tell some jokes. And sometimes I am cool.
I think about the people who don't want you to have children because of the impact on the environment.
Oh, you mean like the 5 people who believe that? Like, let's not pretend anti-natalism is like this thriving, huge movement, okay? Do they even have like a convention? Anti-natalist convention. Is there one? Oh my god, there is. There's an Anti-Natalism International. Amazing. It featured only 9 speakers. Okay, yeah. What a thriving movement.
Perhaps not everyone will make that connection, but after spending time in the international space trying to protect life, I can tell you that this is part of their ultimate goal, to control people. Let me share a personal...
Bro, you can't judgmentally say that after you've spent like the last 15, God, we're only 15 minutes in. 15 minutes talking about how you want to get between like women and their doctors, okay? You can't take the moral high ground on controlling people here when you've done nothing but talk about how you want to control people.
Personal example of how the left seeks to permeate every dimension of life through their skewed terminology and definition. When I arrived at USAID...
Yeah, how dare the left have words for things?
I had a career employee ask me how many children I had. I thought it was a bit odd of a question, but to be kind, I answered, and I said I had 3 children. And he actually said to me, "Oh wow, 1.5 too many for the environment." I smiled and I said very politely, if I could have 10 more children, I would.
My bullshit sensors are going off, chat. I don't think this happened. And if it did happen, it's possibly the most malicious interpretation of what was said. Because I can't imagine someone seriously looking at someone and being like, "Oh, sounds like you had 1.5 children too many." How would you have half a child? Like, if this did happen, and I feel like that is granting a lot here. If this did happen, and someone said, "Oh, sounds like you had 1.5 too many children," and your interpretation of that is that that person genuinely thought that you had 1.5 too many children, it sounds like you just don't understand a joke. It's one of those two things. Either she's lying or absolutely did not understand the joke. There's not really another option. I don't see another option here. Like, I'm autistic, okay? I'm on the spectrum, all right? And my brain is just really stuck on the fact that he said, allegedly, you had 1.5 too many children. And I can't even interpret that in a way that isn't a joke. How does one have half a child? Ever heard of King's? Okay, true. I apologize. I've flown in the face of biblical truth, and I apologize. Okay. Clearly, what happened was a King Solomon-like decision that split the child in two, giving half to each, to her, and the other half to, I presume, someone who divorced her? Question mark? I find it very questionable that she has a happy home.
The policy book captures the essence of climate change, and I quote, "In the name of combating climate change, policies have been used to create an artificial energy scarcity that will require trillions."
I'm curious. I've been cursed with a bit of intellectual curiosity. I've been burdened by it, unlike these two. Who is this Bernard L? Is his name literally Bernard L. McName? Because that sounds like a fake name that I would come up with for a bullshit character in a D&D campaign. All right, that sounds like. Yeah, his name's Bernard McName. The fakest name I've ever read. All right, just out of curiosity, who's this guy? Served as commissioner for the Federal Energy Regulatory Commission from 2018 to 2020. All right. Where did he come from, though, before he was appointed? He's been a member of the Federalist Society since 1990. And let's see. He had key leadership positions under attorneys general in Virginia and Texas and policy advisor roles for U.S. Senator Ted Cruz, Attorney General Ken Paxton, and governor of Virginia. Interesting. Okay. I'm wondering something. Climate change denial. All right. Let's see here. Oh. Well, this is interesting. This is written in 2018 by the Union of Concerned Scientists. The Senate should reject Bernard McName's, it's probably McNamee? Nomination to serve as the Federal Energy Regulatory Commission. According to the Union of Concerned Scientists, the vote is expected at noon today. Mr. I'm just going to call him McName. McName's bias, so clearly in favor of fossil fuels and against renewables, should disqualify him for this position. What we need is an impartial regulator who will vote in proceedings fairly. Okay. The only winner here is the coal industry. States with large renewable energy industries, such as Kansas and Iowa, have a lot to lose. His pro-coal stance. Imagine being pro-coal in 2018. My God. A lot to lose from a public health standpoint. Look, he was paid off by big black lung, okay? He's part of an effort to force ratepayers to prop up expensive old coal plants, so consumers have a lot to lose. Okay, most of all, the climate losses. We have about 10 years to aggressively reduce carbon emissions, or we're going to destroy the planet. And the Senate just confirmed a pro-fossil fuel, anti-renewables political operative with a massive conflict of interest. The partisanship is really striking. Interesting. Tell me more. Okay. Yeah, basically, as far as I can tell about this guy, he was in charge of basically pricing renewable rates of energy higher than like coal or oil or natural gas, because he was essentially a lobbyist in the form of an advisor for these big energy markets.
Billions of dollars in new investment, supported with taxpayer subsidies to address a problem that government and special interests themselves have created. Page 364, end of quote. Population growth, environmental changes, and weather patterns have all been intertwined by the left. They take or even make up a term and create, extend, and alter the definition to validate whatever ideology or position they want to ingrain.
I have to be honest, it's really weird to make this kind of statement after talking about the term climate change. I feel like it's pretty self-explanatory because the climate is changing. So I feel like this is a particularly weak time to introduce this argument on her part.
And convince others is good, when in reality it's not. Often, as you just heard, they are simply not coherent or logical. Remember, our intelligence community identified climate change as the #1 threat to America. So even if you do not work at the department...
Yeah, I would say an entire state being rendered unlivable is probably a big threat to America, yeah. I would say like, if you're against, I don't know, nuking Iowa, you should probably be against the waters consuming Florida like they did to ancient Atlantis, you know? like, I don't know. Also, for the record, Atlantis isn't real, okay? It was an allegorical place, all right? It's not real.
Department of Energy, no matter where you work, because of the Biden administration's executive orders and policy priorities, you will have to look for climate change language and get rid of it.
Bethany, when you were talking...
Oh, yeah, again, this is just... You'll have to look for something you disagree with in anything that's written and destroy it. This is the fascist coup. Yeah, you're describing the fascist coup.
Talking about how the left has co-opted so many words and weaponized so many words when it comes to abortion, and that's something that, you know, political appointees in the next administration are going to have to really look at. This idea that it's a right. There's many phrases that included rights. Is there other places where rights are used as a catch-all and it means something else?
Katie, that's...
Yeah, leftists believe in things called rights. You know, they want everyone to have rights. Like, what are you doing, man? Like, yeah, we believe people should have certain inalienable rights. Yeah. I'll own that. Sure. Yeah, I think people have the right to not, like, be killed by, like, poisoned water. What a radical idea.
That's a great question. And in fact, number 3 is human rights. Human rights in border security. So rights...
Oh God. Oh God, they're going to talk about how you shouldn't have human rights.
Rights. The left is always coming up with new rights. In the Trump administration,
Yeah, because, you know, we tend to believe that things should get better and you should, like, have more rights as time goes on. As we improve our society collectively, we should have more rights and defend more rights.
We countered human rights with unalienable rights. The careers went...
Yeah. Human rights should be inalienable rights. That's what the argument we're making.
Absolutely crazy at USAID. But thankfully, President Trump had established a commission on unalienable rights at the State Department, and we would just point back to the commission. Sadly, our founding documents were not sufficient, but thankfully the commission was. The Department of State's Commission on Unalienable Rights.
I'm sorry, what?
Just point back to the commission. Sadly, our founding documents were not sufficient, but thankfully the commission was.
That's actually kind of shocking. Right? She's saying the Constitution wasn't sufficient. That is interesting. Like, she's so far lost in the sauce that she's like, our founding fathers have failed us and not given us perfect founding documents. Yeah, this is some like RoboCop level like conservatism.
The Department
not complimentary.
of State's Commission on Unalienable Rights was charged with providing the U.S. government with advice on human rights grounded in our nation's founding principles and the principles of the 1948 Universal Declaration of Human Rights. Now, I'm going to turn over border security to you, Katie, as it deals with legalese.
And we all know that border security is a major issue, and
they both sound like they've had like 2 or 3 glasses of wine.
Differences between a conservative presidency and administration and the current administration couldn't be more stark than in this area. So getting the words very precise and correct is crucial. The left has co-opted language and definitions as it relates to immigration. Illegal immigration is one of the most devastating challenges America faces today, particularly when you factor in all of the secondary costs and effects of illegal.
Yeah, I'm not gonna lie. This just sounds like a lady who's really upset that she can't use the name of the 1960s operation to deport immigrants to Mexico. Okay, she just sounds like she's upset that she can't use that term anymore.
Illegal immigration, including illicit drug and human trafficking. The left knows
most illicit drugs and human trafficking come into our country via legal means, via aircraft, via cars crossing the border, driven by citizens.
American people oppose illegal immigration and understands its effects. So they have spent years using language designed to both conflate illegal immigration and legal immigration, the latter of which most Americans support, and soften the idea that illegal immigration is, in fact, illegal. It is a good bet.
Yeah, except that we know that that's illegal, but also, to what degree is it illegal? I'm just gonna ask this question. To what degree is it illegal? Super illegal? Is it ultra illegal? Like, if illegality was a spectrum, okay? And on one end you have like jaywalking, and on the other hand you have, quintuple homicide, okay? How illegal is undocumented immigration? I actually have an answer for this. It's over here on the jaywalking side of the spectrum. It is a misdemeanor. It is less serious than if you were caught speeding. And I have to tell you something. I've seen how a lot of conservatives drive in rural areas. I know you motherfuckers aren't driving the speed limit, okay? I know that. I've seen you every single day on the roads. And I know you guys aren't speeding. So just to be clear, for a crime that is less severe than speeding, you want to launch a multi-billion-dollar operation to ethnically cleanse America. That doesn't make sense to me. Doesn't make sense to me that you want to deport people who came here to work. That doesn't make sense to me. It is explicitly something fueled by racism. Because notice they don't talk about undocumented immigrants from, Canada. And you know what? I live in Minnesota, and I can tell you there are undocumented immigrants from Canada, but conservatives don't care because they're white. Yeah, honestly, Chai T-Rex. Also, there are a lot of undocumented immigrants from Europe as well. Conservatives also don't care about that. And I need to point this out. One of those undocumented immigrants from Europe tried to kill Donald Trump. Like, I know a lot of people forget this. When Donald Trump was running for president the first time, he had a guy from the UK go to one of his rallies and then try to steal a gun from a cop to try and shoot Donald Trump. Conservatives don't care about that. What? Yeah. Crazy story. I don't remember that. Yeah, I remembered it because I thought it was a pretty big deal that someone tried to kill the president.
A great, great wall.
Are you serious, man? What are you thinking?
Michael Sanford could have altered the course of American history.
Anyway, yeah, that happened. Also, don't do that. It's a very dumb thing to do. Yeah. Again, when British people, when Canadians, overstay their visas, they become, undocumented immigrants. They become illegally in America. But you know what? Weirdly, conservatives don't lose their minds over that. It's about Hispanic people. They just hate non-white people, essentially. What a lame plan. How did he think that was going to work? I mean, I think he was probably pretty mentally ill, frankly. Seems more like a plan for a suicide by cop situation, but anyway.
That the left has focused group tested the language it uses to cover up the horrors of illegal immigration. For example, when describing illegal immigration, the left likes to use words and phrases like undocumented immigrants and migrants.
Yeah, because they're migrants. And sometimes migrants are documented. Also, an undocumented immigrant entering America isn't necessarily here illegally. I know that conservatives that might be news to some people, but we have a process called asylum. If somebody crosses the border to begin the asylum process, they can cross at any point along our border. It does not have to be the legal point of entry. If they cross across one of our borders and then go and make themselves known to the local authorities, that is actually them following the legal process. They lack the documentation, but they are here legally, because it is legal to be here while applying for asylum. It's almost like different words and different phrases mean different things.
These terms are designed to sound softer and take the edge off the fact that these people are illegally in the United States. It is important to note that they specifically avoid using the word alien, which is the terminology used in federal law. To be clear, alien is not a negative or pejorative term. It is
I don't know, lady. I think if, let me put it this way, lady. I think if somebody walked up and said, you look like an alien, I think you would take it in a pretty negative or pejorative way. I think that it's pretty clear that it has those connotations.
Particular. It simply means that an individual is not a citizen of a particular country. Language matters here for a lot of reasons, but primarily because citizens of the United States have rights that others, including foreign nationals...
She looks human to you? I have to be honest here. She looks very weird to me.
...who are illegally on our soil do not. If I had to guess, I would say that the left's attempt to wash away the term alien stems from their disdain of actual law, since they want to avoid discussion of what federal immigration law actually requires.
Man, I have to say that's pretty rich coming from someone who doesn't accept the outcome of like 100+ trials against Donald Trump, who is who's supporting a guy who's a felon 34 times over. I think we know who is disdain for law, okay?
Which is everything they refuse to do, and their interest in washing away the overall value of citizenship. Remember, citizenship places a focus on nationality and sovereignty. The left has bought into the globalist vision of a borderless world, and their language choices reflect that. The left loves to say that illegal aliens are undocumented. Not only is that terminology not used anywhere in federal law, but it is clearly designed to soften the concept of illegality by making it seem like it's just a technicality. In other words, if you are undocumented...
Hey, so just quick question. If you're a conservative and you buy into this type of logic, I want you to ask yourself, honestly, like have some introspection here. Have you ever sped? Like, have you ever driven faster than the stated speed limit? If you say no, I don't believe you. Just as an FYI. Well then, how are you getting mad at being called a criminal? You're a criminal. You broke the law. All you had to do was not drive faster than the posted speed limit. You're a criminal. You're just a criminal, and you have disdain for the law. If you had any respect for the law at all, you'd go and turn yourself in for speeding. Oh, wait. This is a rules for thee and not for me type situation. Oh, gotcha. Yeah, I bet this lady is jaywalked all over the place.
Documented. It makes it sound like you can be here legally, but you're missing a few pieces of bureaucratic paperwork. That is simply not the case. If an alien has not...
That is actually the case, though. Like, if you have paperwork, you can be here legally. Like you understand that that is actually explicitly the case? Like, if we changed our bureaucracy, they could just be here legally? Like, we could do that.
Not gone through the appropriate process for obtaining a visa to enter the United States or otherwise followed United States law.
By the way, these are the people who are like, we don't want or need big daddy government. We don't need a nanny state. But also, please, if you're coming here, you have to come in through the right way. You have to follow the rules. You have to do all of this. You have to get your papers.
Enter the United States. They are illegally here. Period.
What are you, a fucking liberal?
Hard stop. Calling illegal aliens undocumented immigrants is the intellectual equivalent of calling someone who breaks into your house in the middle of the night an undocumented homeowner. It is inaccurate.
You know, you could just go with an uninvited guest. Which, by the way, you know, if you went with like a term people use for people who break in, and like when people use when they're telling stories about break-ins, you know, it might make it too relatable. You had to like go with like weird terminology here. No, if somebody breaks into your house, you could call them an uninvited guest. I'm pretty sure I've seen that happen in like all kinds of action movies. Like Die Hard. I think it happens in the Die Hard movies a lot. Like, come on. Also, we call things not by their legal names all the time. You know? Like, I don't know. I'm just throwing this out there, okay? I'm just throwing this out there. We're currently 22 minutes and 8 seconds, all right? Just throwing this out here, okay?
Bethany, are your children afraid of monsters in the attic or under the bed?
Yeah, they have been, but we always tell them that they do not exist.
Today we have news. There are monsters in Uncle Sam's attic.
It's the word.
What? What do you mean? America doesn't have an attic. America doesn't have... That doesn't make sense. America is a country. It doesn't live in a house. Like, that's what they're doing. That's what they're doing right now, okay? They're like, you have to call it an alien. You have to call, like, an undocumented immigrant an alien because that's what it says in the law. Oh, well then why are you talking about monsters in America's attic? America doesn't have one of those. Why are you talking about imaginary things that don't exist over here? So strange. Almost like it's a turn of phrase in a more colloquial sense outside of a courtroom. I don't know if you guys know this, but people typically don't like lawyers that much who rely on speaking in legalese in social situations. People don't tend to like that, actually. They tend to hate them when that happens. Okay? Just real quick.
Words, phrases, definitions that are used, which may look
during this training, but today
your hand.
Sorry.
Imperialist.
Oh, wait, I'm sorry. Your name is your legal name Katie Sullivan? Katie? Or is it Catherine, you bitch? We're in the courtroom now, okay? You're the one telling me I gotta call people aliens. Well, then I'm here to tell you I gotta call you Catherine. Asshole. Again, this is the level of pedantry they're operating on right now.
Undocumented homeowner. It is inaccurate and it is designed to be inaccurate. The term migrants or migration are just as deceptive. The left likes to use migrants and migration, not only because it sounds gentle, but it also...
Yeah. Because that's... They're migrating to the that's just what they're doing, man. Like, that's a description of their activity. It's like they just learned how language works. These people are children. The most malicious children you can imagine.
It also creates confusion. When people hear these terms, they know deep down that migration...
Yeah, you know what happens when you create confusion? You ask questions and you learn. You learn something that you find anathema to your very existence. When you're confused, you learn. My God. Oh, God. Charlotte Nova, thank you for the 9 gifted tier 1 subs.
Yay. Calling conservatives intellectually honest is like calling a white woman an ethno-imperialist cis. Whatever the asterisk she said there.
Indeed. Charlotte Nova, thank you for the 9 tier 1 subs. My goodness. Thank you very, very much. McWiggin! Chat, we love McWiggin here, don't we, folks? One of our rarest and most valuable mods. JK, I love all mods equally.
Migration is seasonal and circular. They think of birds or butterflies. They fly south, they fly north, and...
Yeah, because nothing else migrates.
So on. And historically, we have had foreign nationals come into the United States for seasonal or agricultural work and then return to their home countries. It would be reasonable and accurate to refer to those individuals as migrant workers because they...
Yeah, or, you know, by like some shorter term, like, I don't know, migrant. Because they're migrants. That's what the first word means there. And they're workers. So they're migrant workers. I know that's very difficult. I know that's difficult to do, okay? I know putting 2 words together is a more complex thing than just having 1 word by itself, but you got to stay with me here, okay?
Ultimately return home. But make no mistake, the current mass illegal immigration we are seeing as a result of the Biden administration's intentional actions is not migration, and these people are not migrants. It is an orchestrated invasion being led by the Biden administration.
You know, it's very rich hearing this person talk about how words mean things. And actually, we need to insist on a very real and legal definition for undocumented immigrants. And then she just goes on to throw out, and that's why we're facing an invasion, a coordinated invasion. Are you kidding me?
BWABWABWABWABWA less than 3 Jack BWABWABWABWABWA. You're good people. BWABWABWA hug.
Mistress Lynn, thank you for the 5 gifted tier 1 subs. Let's go. Thank you so much. But yeah, no, it's very rich hearing them go from we need very specific legal definitions to we're being invaded by migrants. Now, I wonder, is there a legal definition of invasion? I wonder. Let's see. Do-do-do-do-do-do-do. Do-do-do-do-do-do. Let's see. Ba-ba-ba-ba-ba-da-ba-da, ba-ba-ba-ba-ba-da-ba-da. Oh, weird. Let's take a look here. What did invasion, insurrection, and other violent threats at the time of the U.S. founding mean? Let's take a look. In 1777, the colonies, which had the previous year declared themselves free and independent states, were perilously engaged in a shooting war against their former colonial overlord, Great Britain. Although by the time of the Philadelphia Constitutional Convention of 1787, independence had technically been won, the new United States were surrounded by territory occupied or claimed by acquisitive European imperial powers. British Canada on the north and Spain's vast possessions to the south and west, with the French threatening reassertion of their prior claims to Louisiana and the Mississippi Valley. Moreover, U.S. coastwise and transatlantic sea trade were vulnerable to vastly larger European navies. In addition, the newly independent states and their outlying western settlements warred intermittently with Native American tribes, justifiably hostile to increasing European encroachment on their tribal territories. Let's see here. The founding generation was also worried about two other kinds of military threat: armed insurrection against state governments from within, or, strange though it may seem to us now, invasions of one state by another state, or confederation of states. Accordingly, they wanted to ensure that the military resources of the entire Union could be employed to suppress local insurrection or interstate aggression. At the Constitutional Convention, multiple framers repeatedly expressed the view that the Articles of Confederation required replacement because they provided the national government insufficient powers to defend the nation or individual states militarily against foreign invasion or domestic insurrections. All right. Throughout the Constitutional Convention and the state ratification debates that followed, delegates and commentators used the term invasion over and over, with a handful of exceptions where invasion is used metaphorically, as when referring to an invasion of rights. The word invariably refers to a hostile armed incursion into or against the territory of the states or the nation, an incursion that must be met with a military response. Interesting. So, it doesn't appear that legally, when the framers made the Constitution, it doesn't seem like they were working on that. I wonder, let's take a look at the text. What's the text of the United States Constitution say? The United States shall guarantee to every state in this union a republican form of government and shall protect each of them against invasion and on application of the legislature or of the executive when the legislature cannot be convened against domestic violence. Violence capitalized. All right. This is basically about defending from outside threats, from outside armed threats, i.e., a foreign nation state invading the United States. Weird. So, I don't know. I'm looking through a lot of this text from the Constitution here, and it doesn't seem to be particularly applicable. And granted, I'm not a lawyer. I'm just a simple country streamer. Okay? But I can't help but notice when people from South and Latin America are coming here, they're coming here to work in our country not to overthrow our government, not to organize violence against the people who live here. I think that someone who just spent a large degree of time arguing for a very a legalese definition of a foreign national is throwing around the legal term like invasion like it's nothing. It's very strange.
In conjunction with the Mexican cartels. The bottom line is, we win or lose political fights based on language. If you let the other side of the debate set the terms of the debate, you've already lost. In the context of immigration specifically, we have to start using more accurate language to describe what is going on and pegging...
Yeah, those dang undocumented immigrants working and paying their taxes while not reaping any benefits of the state. How dare they work while not getting any kind of like social safety net? Those bad, hard-working people who came here just to make a living or support their family back home. Oh man.
Our language to existing law. If we
you can't pause it, pegging. I can, because we need to take it slow, all right?
Can take back the language here and elsewhere, we will win more of these fights. So Bethany, I mean, these are some great examples. And another one that comes to my mind that has been completely co-opted by the left is gender. And
hell yeah, we did. We're not giving it back.
I know you have so much experience in the history of your...
I know you have so much experience in gender. Oh man, this is gonna be rough, guys.
Professional life in dealing with this. Where are we today on this issue and the language and the words and the definitions?
Let's talk about the word gender. The word gender is no longer a polite way to refer to biological sex, male or female.
I want to say this is the weirdest possible person you could get to try and make this argument. Like, my main problem with the gender ideology movement of the left is that they took the word gender that used to be a shorthand for talking about people's genitals, and they turned it into something else. And frankly, I'm very uncomfortable not knowing what the genital situation is on a stranger. I mean, I really should have just I should just know, okay? But if I can't know by just looking, then I should be able to assume based on their pronouns, and not knowing whether they have a penis or a vagina in their pants causes me intense emotional distress. And you know what? Frankly, and this is what worries me even more, is that my husband might be gay when he's attracted to someone. And I just can't have that. I can't have my husband looking at someone who might have a penis, because that would make him gay. It would just too much. I need to know. I need clear-cut language to tell me if someone has a penis or a vagina. Otherwise, my entire worldview starts crumbling, and I won't be able to know if I'm straight or gay anymore, because it will make me question things that I've repressed about myself for my entire life. And that's why we really need to take back gender, okay? So that my husband doesn't think he's gay anymore.
Now, the word now is completely toxic. It's no longer being used to mean male or female, but now how people identify, which is...
Yeah, it's almost like sex and gender are two different things, bitch.
Where we get this idea of gender identity. Katie, did you know that there are between 72 and 1,000 different kinds of gender? We should never use the word gender.
God. You know, you could just be like loosey-goosey about it. You don't have to be like, there are exactly 72 genders. You know, like the impulse these people have to put a number on the exact amount of genders that there could be, like, flies directly in the face of their absolute lack of curiosity about the science behind climate change. You know, like, on the one hand, they have an intense need for, like, the exact number, the data of gender, but when it comes to climate change, it's probably not real. I won't look into it.
Gender as conservatives. It's not specific and it's nonsensical. Instead, use the word sex or biological sex or male and female.
Wait, but we still talk about gender, though. Like, wait, we talk about all these things. The left doesn't. What do you mean the left doesn't talk about sex? We talk about sex all the time. And we talk about genitals. We talk about male and female. We talk about all these things. We're just not weird about it because we also talk about gender. We don't make assumptions about the connection between somebody's sex and somebody's gender. My God. Like, did they forget what the, like, core root word following trans means? Transgender. It's in the name, guys. Like, all right.
And I don't care where you are in the administration, you will deal with the word gender. Speaking of sex, the next...
Yeah, you will. Yeah, no matter where you are in life, you're gonna deal with the word gender, I guess, unless you were raised on like an island by wolves or something.
Phrase that we're going to talk about is sex assigned at birth. Now, I just told you to use the word sex, and you may think that sex assigned at birth, that sounds great. Well, actually it's not. It's the left's attempt to change biological fact and to try to normalize their belief that biological sex can change. Unfortunately,
okay, but here's the thing. When you're born, the doctor just looks at your genitals and says, well, it looks like a boy, it looks like a girl, and that's what's marked down on your birth certificate, okay? The reality is that your biological sex is more complicated than whether vagina or penis. You know, there are different, like, hormonal conditions, there are different genetic conditions, there's a whole lot of different, like, nuance going on here, all right? Like, they aren't DNA testing your baby to see what the chromosomes are. They aren't looking at the hormone levels of your child. And, you know, they aren't measuring those hormones regularly as your child grows up. You have no idea. All you know is what the sex assigned at birth was. That is the accurate term if you are interested in biological data as ascertained by a doctor, because that doctor didn't run any battery of tests. That doctor looked at the genitals. All right? Again, this just keeps coming back to the fact that you're upset that you can't make assumptions about what someone's genitals are. And that's really weird. That's deeply weird, okay?
Fortunately, many folks, including solid conservatives, have accepted this and don't understand the danger in using this term. In fact, some conservatives have even taken this term and changed it slightly. Gender as revealed.
Biological sex cannot change, ma'am. What do you think puberty is? Biological sex cannot change. Bitch, do you think that like you're still a baby? Do you think your biology hasn't changed between the time you were born and now? You think you're biologically the same now? Are you kidding me?
At birth. The left is infiltrating our conservative organizations, Christian schools, and even churches. We must always be on guard.
Damn, They really are pushing this Red Scare type shit. The left is infiltrating all of our conservative institutions, our churches, our schools. They could be around any corner. The left could be anywhere. Like, my God, what the hell? This is some, like, we need you to spy on your neighbor type shit.
Cis people and trans people. Anyway, HRT is a thing. This rhetoric is actually anti-knowledge.
True. Charlotte Nova, thank you for the $20 dono. I'll read the first part. Newsflash, shit-ass. Sex changes in cis people and trans people. Anyway, HRT is a thing. This rhetoric is actually anti-knowledge. It's anti-knowledge and it's anti-curiosity. They don't even want people to have the option to learn more, you know? They want obedient little drones.
And when a new term is introduced, ask, what is the genesis for this new term and why was it introduced?
And again, remember, this is what fascism is, chat. If you ever at any point thought it can't happen here, it's happening. That's what this is. If Donald Trump wins, that's what takes power. This like checks off all of the boxes of Umberto Eco's 14 points of fascism. This is exactly it.
If you see the term sex assigned at birth, delete it and replace it with biological sex. The next issue under gender is...
Why? You have no idea. Can I just say something? Like, we have no idea what this lady's biological sex is. Frankly, we don't know what her biological sex is. I don't know. Did any of you see her vagina in this video? Did any of you see her vagina? Did any of you see her chromosomes at any point in this video? Her hormone levels? Any of the things that conservatives talk about when they talk about biological sex? No? None of you? Then how do we know what your biological sex is, barring some kind of huge battery of tests? You know, some people have what's called genetic chimerism, where they have different different parts of their body have XY chromosomes or XX chromosomes. People have different kinds of intersex conditions. Like, there's all kinds of stuff that can happen in a human body. It's a fascinating and weird place. That's why we have people who've dedicated their entire lives to understanding like one tiny portion of it. But she's over here trying to tell you it's as simple as penis and vagina. And she completely lacks any kind of intellectual curiosity about that, or any kind of like knowledge that might not be the full spectrum of what is possible, because she's locked in by her ideology into being anti-intellectual, anti-curiosity, anti-questioning authority. The sandpaper of fascism has smoothed her brain to such a degree you could skip it across like 12 miles of lake, okay?
Is pronouns. Don't fall into the progressive left's trap in regard to pronouns.
Okay.
Don't use them in email signature blocks, on LinkedIn, and absolutely do not ask people what their pronouns are on your first day on the job. When I was
Why?
Fucking pronouns!
Like literally, it's just coming down to like, I'm upset that like social pleasantries have slightly changed. I'm upset that I can no longer assume whether someone has a dick or a vagina.
at USAID, managers were giving training and were told that when they have new staff or have a staff meeting, they should go around the room and ask everyone what their pronouns are.
Yeah, to make people feel like welcome and comfortable. Yeah.
Katie, if that happened to you, what would you do?
I think political appointees.
I feel like we're about to get the most unhinged answer you've ever heard in your life.
Bethany, great question. Need to expect that they are going to be tested by career staff the day they walk in. So that question, every political appointee should be prepared to deal with and answer, whether it's in a political staff.
I'm sorry.
Need to expect political appointees, Bethany, great question, need to expect that they are going to be tested by career staff the day they walk in. So
you're not being tested. People are asking you how you would like to be referred to. Like, I feel like this isn't like a pass-fail situation. Like, how would you like to be referred to? Like, what, do you want she, her pronoun? Do you want to be called he, him? Do you want they, them, zer? Like, what do you want people to call you? You know, like, my name's Katie. No, it's not. Your name's Catherine. Show us your birth certificate. Like, what do you mean? This assumed hostility is bizarre.
So that question, every political appointee should be prepared to deal with and answer, whether it's in a training. I don't think it'll take that long. It probably will be the first couple days on the job. So a political appointee is empowered. They are empowered because they are
get a job.
Absolutely put in the position, whatever level it is, in order to implement the president's agenda. And that is the business of a political appointee and should be the business of all federal employees. So the answer is simple. We're here to implement the president's priorities and agenda. We are not here to discuss pronouns.
The next topic is...
So you're going to turn what is just a simple exchange of pleasantries and team building into you being an asshole in order to try and further your I don't think you're going to be able to get your legislation very far if you just treat everyone like shit. I don't think that will work very well in a group setting.
Is gender affirming care. Gender affirming care and what the Biden administration is promoting is absolutely infuriating.
She's got like a weird little head bob.
For parents, we need to be protecting our children from these harmful, sterilizing puberty blockers.
Puberty blockers don't sterilize you. Also, okay. So puberty blockers don't sterilize you. They might, however, prevent somebody who is on them from becoming pregnant while they are taking puberty blockers. And if you're really concerned with that, if you're really concerned with like a teenager not being able to get pregnant or impregnate somebody, why? Because you don't take puberty blockers your entire life. You block puberty until you're ready to go through puberty. So like while you're on them, yeah, you might not be able to get pregnant. Okay? After you've stopped them, you might be able to get pregnant again. We know that this is not a problem because puberty blockers were tested out. We've had them for 50 years, and they've been used predominantly on cisgender kids. And guess what? They're getting people pregnant just fine as adults, okay? They're okay. They're fine.
Sex hormones and permanent genital mutilation.
Okay, we got to take it one at a time. I'm sorry, lady.
Protecting our children from these harmful, sterilizing puberty blockers cross-sex hormones.
Okay. When you start hormones, you start them at the age everyone starts puberty at. Okay? You start taking HRT if you are getting affirming care as a teenager. You start HRT roughly in the window of time during which all kids go through puberty. If you're really worried about the dangers of like a child being flooded with hormones, I've got bad news for you. That happens to every kid. Asterisk, with a few exceptions of people who simply just don't produce puberty hormones in their bodies. But you know what? We have HRT for them too. Like that. You could still. Luckily, we have a thing for that. It's called hormone replacement therapy. So, all right, you want to protect them from puberty blockers, going through puberty weirdly,
and permanent genital mutilation.
And permanent genital mutilation, by which you mean bottom surgery. And you've got to be legally considered an adult to get that. You can't get that as a child. All right? If you're in a state where like the age of like the legal age of being considered an adult is lower than 18, I guess you could get that there, but that's a problem with the legal age of when you are considered an adult, okay? So I guess when you're talking about genital mutilation, bottom surgery, okay? When you're talking about that, that's a choice you make as an adult. When you're the same age where you can decide to go join the army and like get blown up on the other side of the planet. You know what? Controversial, hot take, okay? I think that if you can sign up to join the military and get like your arm or leg blown off or even killed, I think you are old enough to decide whether or not you want bottom surgery. Crazy idea. Good night, thistles for eyes.
Gender affirming care is not care at all. The idea
again, it's not surprising that people who deny modern science also deny modern medicine.
That gender is fluid is evil, and it is a major initiative of the Biden administration.
Is it? Is it evil? Because I have bad news for you, okay? Bethany, I've got bad news for you. Oh, wow. Look at that. You're showing thigh. You know, in some cultures, showing off your thighs would have been considered a man thing to do. That would have been considered the role of a man right now. You are playing the role of a man by showing your thighs. And you might say, well, that's not how it is in our culture. But the point I'm trying to make here is that what is considered manly has changed over time. And I know that you guys hate the idea that we live in this world constrained by the linear passage of time, and yet we live in that kind of reality, and I'm sorry to break it to you. That's at this point unavoidable. Maybe at some point in the future we'll fix that. But in some cultures, you would be considered incredibly masculine for showing off your thighs. And I just want you to know that. Also, high heels were invented for men. They were invented as cavalry shoes. They were invented as a tool of the military class. And thus, men started wearing high heels. It was considered very masculine to wear high heels. Wigs. You know, the founding fathers wore a lot of wigs. weirdly enough, that is now considered feminine. I'm pointing out these individual examples because over time, what is considered masculine or feminine, i.e., gendered things in society, have changed. The language of gender has changed. Okay? And that's just like a matter of historical record. You don't have to go searching for that. Like, it's just, if you pay attention, if you actually like look at the portraits of like Louis the 16th or something, you know, you'll see what I mean by that. Because gender is fluid.
Matter. Change the words, change the culture. Now, Katie, I know that you've written several wonderful pieces on equity and you've done a lot of research on this, and the Biden administration
Can I just show you a picture of what was once considered one of the most masculine men on earth, okay? One of the forerunners of what it meant to be a man who exercised complete and total authoritarian control over all he saw, all he surveyed. The entire country, the lives of millions depended on his very whim. Here's a picture of, Louis the 14th, rather. This sassy little cunt. Used in the Australian man. In the Australian way, of course. Look at this guy. This was peak masculinity. All right? 400 years ago, this was peak masculinity. Now, if these same women saw this guy walking down the street, they would scream about gender ideology and like call for him to be arrested by the police for like, I don't know, grooming the children just by walking down the sidewalk. He is serving cunt as well. That's what I mean. You know, like, guy's kind of cunty. You know, complimentary. Anyway.
Has infiltrated equity into everything.
Yeah, also, if they said that in front of him, he would simply have them executed. That's true. He would simply kill them for disrespecting the king.
What are your thoughts on equity for the next administration?
Well, it's a little heart-stopping, Bethany, and it's going to take a lot to rewind where we are right now with this.
Can I just say I never want this woman to so chillingly say it's heart-stopping again, because I have no doubt that if she was able to implement all the policies rattling around in her head, millions would perish.
The left's definition of equity and how that's layered into all federal government documents. Roger Severino states it perfectly in the Project 2025 Mandate for Leadership book. Quote, under President Biden, the mission has shifted from promoting equity in everything we do, end quote, for the sake of, quote, populations sharing a particular characteristic, including race, sexuality, gender identification, ethnicity.
Just as an FYI, this guy has been working at the Heritage Foundation for like 9 years now. Like, all of these people are just paid operatives of billionaires. Like, all of the people who wrote this, who wrote the mandate for leadership, are just lifelong, like, think tank dudes who've been paid from the moment they exited college to regurgitate and, like, innovate right-wing talking points. Yeah, they're paid incels. Exactly, GamerG.
And a host of other categories. End quote. Equity no longer means
like here, let me point out what I mean here, okay? Let me point out what I mean. Here's the Wikipedia page on Roger Severino, okay? From 2008 to 2015, again, he graduated from Harvard Law. From 2008 to 2015, Severino was a trial attorney in the United States Department of Justice Civil Rights Division. Severino was also previously CEO and counsel for Beckett Fund for Religious Liberty, a nonprofit law firm taking on cases related to freedom of religion, which I wonder where the funding for this nonprofit law firm came from. I'm so curious. In 2015, Severino joined the Heritage Foundation, a conservative think tank geared towards public policy. There, he served as the director of the DeVos Center for Religious and Civil Society at the Heritage Foundation. I wonder if his previous nonprofit law firm was maybe funded by the Betsy DeVos family, the billionaire family that encompasses Betsy DeVos, and her brother, I believe her brother, Eric Prince, who is a mercenary warlord, who has talked about wanting to do a new crusade against the Muslims, unironically, in the modern day. Severino has written several opinion columns for the Daily Signal, which I believe is Tucker Carlson's outlet, I think. Severino has also written for Public Discourse, Ethics, Law, and the Common Good, a journal published by the Witherspoon Institute, a conservative think tank. Like, this guy's entire career is being paid by billionaires. She's related to Eric Prince? Yeah. Eric Prince, Betsy DeVos. There we go. What is their exact relation? Yeah, she's the, let's see. Eric Prince is the son of engineer and businessman Edgar Prince and the brother of Betsy DeVos. Yes, they are related. Yep. Yeah. The woman Trump hired to dismantle the Department of Education is cut from the same cloth as the fucking Blackwater motherfucker. Yeah, by the way, in case any of you don't know, Eric Prince is the guy who ran Blackwater, a mercenary group that he has rebranded like several times over. Yeah. I really want to do a long deep dive into Eric Prince. He's one of the worst people on the planet in my estimation, but you know. Yeah, Blackwater, aka War Crimes in Iraq. Yeah, that company. Yeah. Anyway, all of these people are paid conservative ghouls for billionaires.
All men are created equal, the cornerstone of our U.S. Constitution, but rather now mandates the government to dispense with unequal treatment in order to achieve what they believe to be equal outcomes. This creates divisiveness, not equality. There is no unification under these principles. It is more of a competition of what class is more of a victim, so that particular class
citation needed
can receive the preferential treatment being handed out and mandated by the Biden administration. It's important to note
none of what she just said meant anything at all. Like, it's impressive the amount of non-things they have been saying this entire time.
That the very first executive order that President Biden signed just moments after his inauguration on January 20th of 2021 had to do with equity.
Oh shit. So funny story, when I was deployed, I was tasked with rescuing some Blackwater mercenaries. The absolute ineptitude of them and their intel led me to being injured and getting me my medical discharge from the USMC. Are you kidding, Logic? Holy shit. So, I'm sorry you got injured because of fucking Eric Prince.
The left applauded as Biden announced his #1 priority, which is advancing racial equity and support for underserved communities throughout the federal government.
Yeah.
As part of that executive order, within 90 days, every single agency had to file an equity action plan with the White House.
Okay.
If you want to see or view what you will be up against, take a look at those plans. They're
okay, so you're mad that the government came up with more comprehensive plans to help more people? What? Why do I feel like I've done something wrong? I don't think you've done anything wrong. You've been great.
all online under the Office of Management and Budget. Since that time, 9 more executive orders have been executed by the Biden administration about equity. The latest to date is to further advance.
Okay, so basically they're just saying if you see the word equity, it's evil, and we're not going to elaborate on that or expand it. We're just going to tell you where it shows up, and that's how you know it's bad. Gotcha. Gotcha.
Racial equity. This entails new positions and responsibilities to be embedded into every single agency and office in the federal government.
Screaming at the radio, thank you for subscribing.
And there's also a directive that all funding that is given out by the federal government prioritize unequal treatment of the American people. The noxious tenets
She's literally complaining about equal treatment under the law?
Of critical race theory and gender ideology should be excised from curriculum in every single public school in this country.
So Katie, this is a lot to absorb. So how do you suggest that we tackle the problem? I know you were the head of a grant office at DOJ and you had a lot of paperwork.
Remember guys, whenever you don't get involved, when you don't get involved in our system of checks and balances here, you leave a door open for someone like these ghouls.
What are your suggestions?
Well, I found that developing a process for each type of document was crucial to reversing the words and definitions from the Obama administration. Here's an overall strategy to implement. First,
oh, she's doing the reverse racism. People aren't being treated equally. I don't think these people want people to be treated equally.
Look for any OMB, that's the Office of Management and Budget, White House Office of Management and Budget, guidance. You'll want to instruct career employees that you, whatever level you are, you want to be informed of all OMB guidance and how it is being implemented internally. Oftentimes, careers will just get an OMB circular or an OMB advice, and then they just go along.
God, how does this lady somehow have less charisma than Bethany?
And they either ignore it or they don't put it in. You want to be involved in the process. You want to say, every single thing that comes in, I want to make sure that it is actually being implemented. This can easily be handled at the senior advisor or even special assistant level.
How to identify and replace misguiding language. Oh God. Instruct career employees that you want to be informed of all OMB guidance and how it's being implemented internally. Be aware of how career employees reporting to you are implementing the president's executive orders and OMB directives. Be involved in that process. By the way, when they're saying career employees, what they mean is deep state. They believe that the entire bureaucracy needs to be gutted, and thus anyone who has a career in being a government bureaucrat needs to be observed carefully, lest they are disloyal to the president's orders. That's explicitly what they're talking about.
The second thing you need to do, and
did they just run out of the budget to do a voiceover for that?
Quickly, are look at guidance documents. Now, I've talked about this.
They're literally talking about creating a national safe space for their fees. It's pretty rich coming from this crowd.
In other trainings, guidance documents are simply a federal career employee's interpretation.
Schedule F. The F stands for fascism.
Of a statute, of an appropriation given by Congress, of a rule or regulation, and how it's going to be implemented. A guidance document is not binding. It is simply, in some ways, just their opinion.
Are we really doing a... Are we really doing... Really?
Very well, you hand it over and we'll put your town to our rudder and ne'er return.
Are we really doing this right now?
Negotiations nor our...
To the code of the Order of the Brethren!
First, your return to shore was not part of our negotiations nor our agreement, so I must do nothing. And secondly, you must be a pirate for the Pirate's Code to apply, and you're not. And thirdly, the code is more what you'd call guidelines than actual rules. Welcome aboard the Black Pearl.
Damn, there we go.
Problem with the
I was not showing it on screen because I'm gonna get DMCA'd if I play a full minute-long clip of that movie.
Guidance document is that it has a
Hey,
tremendous
sweet
amount
mitts,
of
how you
authority.
doing?
Because if you are looking to an agency to find out what they're looking for your grant, or how your grant program will be implemented, or what rules they have around it, you're going to look at those guidance documents. They end up with a tremendous amount of authority. It really ends up being the career's agenda being forced onto the American people. A court is the only real institution that can give us a definitive interpretation of any kind of grant program, appropriation, or rule. So most likely, the Office of Management and Budget will come out very quickly with a plan to take down all the guidance documents that are currently up that reflect the Biden administration's agenda. So you'll first want...
You do get a cool name because you allow me to use your music in my intro and when I'm on the toilet, and that means a lot to me. So you get a cool color.
I want to look at that process.
A guidance document is not
The
binding.
second thing you're going to want to do,
God damn
sort of
it.
the second layer, is to absolutely...
Yeah, she's just describing, hey, don't listen to what anyone tells you. Just, do your own thing. Whatever the president says goes.
Look at things that may not appear to be guidance documents, but are. For instance, one of the documents on our website was supposedly done by a Rutgers, professor, and so it looked like it wasn't actually career guidance, but when you really dug into the document, it was not part of any kind of grant program, and it really was just a career who asked a whole bunch of questions, and a Rutgers professor said yes. So it really, in the end, was a guidance document, and we brought it down. Another really frightening example, when I was running the Office on Violence Against Women.
Frightening example.
Was a provision in the Violence Against Women Act that about gender identity. And if you identified as a woman and you showed up at a woman's domestic violence shelter, you had to be accommodated. There were lawsuits, of course, about this as predators used that in order to gain entry.
Citation needed. Citation needed for that statement. Where have predators lied about being women to get into a women's shelter and then abused women? Where? When? Is your source that you imagined it to be true and thus you just said it was true? Is your source your own imagination?
Into a place where there were vulnerable women seemed to me to be exactly opposite of...
You know, Bill Casey, that is a logical question to immediately follow that. Where are battered trans women supposed to go? And in answer to that, these people believe if you're a battered trans woman, you should just die and go straight to hell. That's what they believe. Unironically, they believe that. They do not think trans women are worth sheltering from abuse because they believe in abusing trans women.
You know,
the intention.
Yeah, the intention of the Violence Against Women Act. In any event, it was...
Yeah, we all know that the real truth of the Violence Against Women Act was really the Violence Against People with Vaginas Act. You know, like that's how they treat it, right? Like, this act is not actually about women, it's about vaginas. Like, they're the ones like shrinking their own existence and their own like basis for protections down to their vaginas. And it's really weird and really disconcerting to see these two women be like, yes, the only thing that matters about me is my vagina. Like, that's kind of crazy, right? Like, it's really belittling of themselves. Trans men also don't count to them. Yeah.
Directed toward just the Office on Violence Against Women programs. It was in the Violence Against Women Act. But
do they have
in
kids?
the Obama
Probably.
Administration, the entire grant-making component of the Office of Justice programs, which I later went on to run, the head of that office actually wrote a guidance document that said that the provision in the Violence Against Women Act regarding to gender identity was intended to apply to every single DOJ grant program, that it wasn't limited to the Office on Violence Against Women. There was absolutely no indication that this was true, but you can see that just by getting that particular
also
legislation passed and the way that the careers then interpreted it created a complete change in culture across the Department of Justice. The next step will be to read every single executive order. I would suggest that, you know, starting with an assistant, a special assistant, a senior advisor, that you get every single executive order and put it in a binder and have that binder for the principal and make sure that it's flagged for them. There will be a lot of executive orders that come out, and some of them actually, and know this, repeal other executive orders. So you need to then pull the executive orders that are being repealed so you are very clear about what needs to be redacted. Now let's go back to that OMB tip that I gave, and just like...
Again, this is just like a step-by-step instruction on how to censor and destroy the American government. It's actually like really chilling in a way, right? Like, she's effectively saying you need to go through the history of like American bureaucracy and destroy anything that conflicts with our ideological viewpoints.
That
yeah, this is. I know that what they are saying and how they are presenting this makes it sound boring and kind of normal. But if you like dig under that kind of like boring layer, this is fundamentally about how to destroy America and make it a fascist state.
You need to be part of the process that the careers are using to implement executive orders. During the Trump administration, I can tell you that executive orders were,
it is genocidal.
were signed,
that in intent
executed,
and rhetoric, yeah.
Where all the guidance was given. You gave an example.
Yeah, honestly, Super Jet Guy, that's actually not that far from the truth. I would say this is less the Nazi book burning moment and more like one of the I don't remember who, like Himmler or something, like one of the bureaucrats in Hitler's government giving a step-by-step instructional guide to the Hitler Youth on how to appropriately burn, you know, Jewish literature. You know, yeah, this is the boring instructional manual on how to do a book burning properly.
Example of this, Bethany, to our office, and I later found out.
Why isn't this sedition? Because they're talking about things that they would be legally able to do if they came into power. Like, none of the things that they are saying right now is explicitly on its own in isolation illegal. Because our framework is not equipped for this kind of fascist takeover, you know? The Trump administration and the officials that have followed him as sycophants learned from their first go-around. If they had had this framework in place and this knowledge in hand, they could have destroyed America the last time around. We were only saved from that outcome by their incompetence.
Out that it was just simply ignored. It's not.
Would fixing the Supreme Court help fix this? Maybe, but I doubt that the Supreme Court is going to be fixed by the time the election happens.
Worth, you know, the price of the paper it's written on if your careers are not implementing what the president wanted.
Yeah, like how to identify and replace misguiding language. Read every single executive order. Be part of the process that career employees are using to implement executive orders. Inserting yourself into the implementation process ensures career employees are not inaccurately executing executive orders, thus diminishing the order's intended purpose and negating positive contributions to the president's agenda. Basically, again, every time they're saying career employee, what they're saying is anyone who is not just a yes man to the president.
I think you can expect that equity and all of the equity executive orders under Biden will be repealed early in the next administration. This is going to require a very detailed plan to execute the eradication of the dictates in the equity orders. For instance, there's a gender advisor position created by one of these executive orders.
Yeah, exactly, Gila Monster. The careers refer to any government employee not in the in-group of those appointed by the Führer. They're talking about coming in and taking over anyone in government who isn't us is the enemy. Exactly.
Position has to be eradicated, as well as all the task forces, the removal of all the equity plans from all the websites, and a complete rework of the language in internal and external.
Again, I just want you all to know about this. Like, part of the reason I'm covering it, right? Part of the reason I'm covering this and dedicating what is sure to be a huge portion of my time to talking about this is that a lot of people know that Project 2025 is bad in some kind of nebulous way. But it's more than bad in a nebulous way. You know? This is like Sephiroth casting Meteor or something. Like this is something that would fundamentally obliterate what we currently recognize as America. Okay? And there are people who simply don't know the details of Project 2025 yet and just are like, oh, I've heard of that, but I don't know what it is. So this segment is for those people, first and foremost, but it's also for other people on the left who are like, who are doing the both sides are bad. Both sides are fascists already. Why? Biden's a fascist, so why should we care if Trump takes over? This is why you should care. Because they are not equal evils. You know, there's a reason why we talk about the lesser of two evils. Putting your head in the sand and pretending they're both bad is just another form of defeatism. It's just another form of giving up. It's just another form of making it easier on yourself to justify your own inaction. This is Nazi shit. Unironically. Unironically. Like, these people are basically running like a Goebbels campaign. This is propaganda and a plan to explicitly kill democracy. And a whole lot of people.
Policy documents and grant applications, which leads me to grants and rules and regulations. Well, grant and grant programs are funded with your federal tax dollars, and they are appropriated by Congress. So you are told how much money you have for what particular program. And typically your appropriations language will just give a very brief description of the.
What do you think will become of this project if we win? Will these training videos become part of a historical archive to train us how fascists think? That'd be great. It'd be great if these were put in like museums and like shown in context as like, this is how like it can happen here. Be on guard, you know? If we then put in place like policies and procedures that prevented anything remotely like this from happening again, that'd be great. I do not have faith in the liberal establishment to recognize this as enough of an ongoing threat beyond the Trump era that might happen. Because I feel like liberals are already trying to talk about Trump like he's just a flash in the pan. He's just like he's a random error in the machine. But like, no, he didn't come out of nowhere. And treating him like an anomaly that will never be repeated is only a disaster waiting to happen.
The program. And that's the direction that Congress
Good night,
has given
Samurai.
the agency. Every single
Good night,
grant
Charlie.
has conditions. You want to think of this like a carrot and a stick. You can have your federal money in order to support your program, but only if you agree to certain conditions, which are built into the grants.
And yeah, I agree. People like this will exist for like the rest of our lives. What I will say is that it's going to be very, very, very hard for the Republican Party to not factionalize if Donald Trump is defeated. Currently, he's basically the only unifying figure in the party. And if you lose him, like, you're just going to see more and more schisms in the Republicans. You know, you're gonna see people who want to go the Candace Owens route. You're going to see people who want to go the Ben Shapiro route. You're going to see people like, it's going to factionalize in a way. And that's not saying it couldn't come back. We'll always have to be on our guard against fascism. We always should have been. But there will be a period of time during which, if we win, the main conflict that will be on the center stage will be the conflict between progressives on the left and liberals and neoliberals. That will be the main point of conflict. And I hope that we reach that. Because I would much rather be fighting that type of battle.
When I began at the Office on Violence Against Women, our grant applications were 75 to 110 pages long. Pages and pages of guidance that had no statutory or congressional counterpart, and tons of conditions. The conditions that you would need in order to receive the money, and you would need to continue to live with those conditions throughout the time of your grant. For instance, to receive grant money, certain programs would have to show a partnership with an LGBTQ support group. There was no language in the appropriation for that grant that an LGBTQ subgrantee was mandated. The career said it was best practices, and it was an...
Is she really complaining right now about a time when an LGBTQ subcommittee, like, got grant? Are you kidding me?
Obama administration priority. This condition on many grants funded a lot of LGBTQ organizations. So we
Oh no! Organizations that provide community support for queer people? The horror. We can't have that. We need to have them miserable and trying to kill themselves, I guess. Yeah, we have to make sure all those gay people are alone, so they're vulnerable.
Moved that
Apparently.
language, and we removed those conditions as we wrote the grants moving forward.
I love how, like, they're like, yeah, this is an example of how you identify and remove unnecessary conditions for grants. Like, again, because she's straight and cis, she doesn't view it as necessary to include gay people, you know?
Rules and regulations also need ultimate political sign-off and a tremendous amount of political involvement. Your careers may draft the initial documents, the rules and regulations, but there should be multiple political edits on the any final proposed rule or regulation. The left is excellent about holding up process. So you want to expect and prepare for thousands of comments coming from tons of left-supported groups on any rule that you put up. So expect that and have a plan to deal with those thousands, tens of thousands of comments in order to move the president's agenda. If you are prepared to deal with the comments that are coming in, then you aren't going to let them delay the rule because they have to be responded to, each one of the comments. The careers will want to follow the system that's...
I love how they, like, invented a new slur in these instructional videos to create that us versus them mentality. You know, the careers. Those evil, vile careers. They might not take very kindly to your dislike of gay people. That's because they're not with us. They're careers.
Currently in place for handling comments or conditions or how grants are written. You are empowered as a political appointee to adjust these processes as long as you are meeting all legal requirements. So you may have to deal with pushback, but really look at your process and change it.
Yeah, again, see what I mean though? Like, as long as you're meeting all legal requirements, you can essentially do whatever you want to, like, say yes to the president. Like, that's where we're at here.
A tip here, in addition to the sheer volume of guidance and conditions to grants and
don't have plans
explanations
to go to
of
TwitchCon at the moment.
proposed rules, is to ask careers to explain a grant program or the need for a rule in 2 sentences.
Wait, is it possible that this could be repurposed for undermining a potential harassment with malicious bureaucrats? I mean, maybe but like, a lot of Project 2025 relies on appointees by the Trump administration. So if you aren't getting those appointees, which you wouldn't get if Donald Trump's administration didn't come into power, then it's not that useful. Essentially. Also, keep in mind that Project 2025, part of it is like this type of guidance, but you have to remember this type of guidance is intended for pre-selected yes men who have signed up to be part of Project 2025, and they're the ones that these videos are intended for, right? So the part of the component of Project 2025 was, the policies and the framework for how to get those policies in place. But the other part was the recruitment of people who will then be standing ready and able to be yes men on day one. So, yeah.
It is astonishing how difficult it is for a career who works in the policy or grant space to actually accomplish this. And finally, use your common sense.
Oh, God.
Even if you see something that isn't directly addressed by an executive order or an OMB circular or directed by your agency head, you want to use your common sense to redact the words and definitions which are weakening our nation. As we have discussed, certain words and phrases
use your common sense to censor things that come across your desk. We're people who believe in free speech.
Together have hidden definitions. A really good example is social emotional learning. That's actually the new buzzword for CRT, or critical race theory. Here's a tip. When you see phrases, any phrase like this, one that sounds innocuous, ask your careers to identify the origin.
You're literally talking about people with like a new phrase to smear career bureaucrats.
Of that phrase. Where did it come from? Why are you using that phrase particularly? What does it mean based on the original intent of those words? And then I would highly recommend you start your own research. As a last note, plan to read a lot of documents. Know how your careers are implementing the president's executive orders, OMB directives, and be very involved in that process. I can't stress enough the need to control all documents.
The need to control all documents. Because it's a fascist coup. It's a fascist takeover of the government.
Create a system where nothing goes out, nothing is published, nothing is put on your website without review by a delegated political or the principal of any office. Ask lots of questions and do not make assumptions. And finally, if a career employee rushes in and says it is an emergency, and I think a lot of people who are an assistant, chief of staff, maybe senior advisor or special assistants are going to have careers just descending on them talking about how it's an emergency that the principals sign something. That's a red flag. Right away, it's a red flag.
Yeah, emergencies are red flags, okay? It's bad when there's an emergency happening. These people don't care. They just want power.
By the time you get into your position, you will realize that the government moves very, very slowly. Just think about your...
Yeah, because you you know what makes the government move even slower? When you take your time during an emergency.
Clearance process and how long that took. These documents need to be read even more carefully. If a career thinks they can push you to sign something by giving it to you at the very...
They sure took a hard right turn from drain the swamp to fill the swamp with concrete. Yeah, no, exactly. Charlotte Nova, thank you for the $20 dono, by the way. My goodness. Thank you so much for supporting stream. I really, really appreciate it. I've been not doing my calls for subs and donos during this segment, so I very much appreciate the support.
Very last minute, that will become the norm, and it will hinder your ability to actually...
Yeah, that's right. If an emergency happens, simply don't respond to it. It will go away.
Go through a process, read things, edit things, and make sure that they are...
I do want to stress, these people seem to resent living in a universe that operates along linear time. It's just like, if an emergency happens, no, it didn't. And, culture changing over time, that's bad, and I hate it.
Completely in line with the president's priorities and agenda. The president's agenda will be in peril from your office if you allow this emergency kind of process.
Katie, that was great. Thank you for taking us through that process. Do you see? The monster is in the attic.
Can I just say this entire vibe? Okay, this might be a weird cut. There's an indie film called The Invitation. I don't know if you guys have seen that movie before or not. But the premise of it is that some estranged friends are invited over for a dinner party, and basically their friends who've been out of the country have arranged to show them a video to recruit them to a cult. And this is kind of the vibe I'm getting from this. This is the vibe I'm getting. I feel like this is recruitment material for a cult. Can we just...
And it is through that. See, do you see? The monster is in the attic.
Do you see? The monster is in the attic, guys. Do you see? Nomi Sunrider, thank you for the $5 super chat. Pull up the definition of social emotional learning because them calling it CRT is infuriating. All right. What is social emotional learning? It is the process of developing the self-awareness, self-control, and interpersonal skills that are vital for school, work, and life success. Huh, that certainly sounds like CRT to me. That certainly sounds like critical race theory. It's an acronym. It must be woke. Is it just me, or are they just straight up using the careers as some sort of secret in-group slur? No, that's exactly what they're doing. Yes. Also, Olympians, thank you for the $5 dono. It's kind of wild what they chose that they choose the word attic. Yeah.
And it is layered in virtually every document in the federal government. Grant applications, rules, regulations.
Just wait until these people find out that pronouns are in all of those documents too. Just wait until they learn how many times pronouns are invoked in these settings.
Fucking pronouns!
internal and external policy documents, guidance documents, tweets, speeches, and panels. Every one of these phrases or words that are not corrected by being redacted or rephrased is a failure of the presidency. As the Heritage Foundation's president,
For every document that you allowed to be unblemished by the greatness that is Trump, okay? It's a failure of his presidency when you don't edit a document. Good God. The amount of dick riding these people do for Donald Trump is ridiculous.
Dr. Kevin Roberts boldly and courageously states in the Mandate for Leadership, the next conservative president must make the institutions of American civil society hard targets for woke culture warriors. This starts with deleting the terms sexual orientation and gender identity, SOGI, diversity, equity, and inclusion, DEI, gender equality, gender equity, gender awareness, gender sensitive, abortion, reproductive health, reproductive rights, and any other term used to deprive Americans of their First Amendment rights out of
Just as an FYI, because of course every single one of the people that they're like, this genius wrote this part in our Mandate for Leadership, and they show them on screen, right? This guy, Kevin Roberts, is the president of the Heritage Foundation, by the way. And he is, in fact, just kind of one of these evil ghouls, but it goes a little bit beyond that for him. He's part of this organization called Opus Dei, which, funnily enough, Day is spelled DEI. But anyway, I'm sure that's a coincidence. So he basically goes and consults a cult organization whose main explicit purpose is to attack the concept of secular government and to try and tear down secular governance in favor of essentially religious governments. He wants to install, or they want to install, a theocracy. They want all governments to fall under kind of this Catholic theocracy that they work towards, right? And it's a bit controversial. We'll say that. Oh God. It's a bit touchy as an org. Yeah, there's a lot of very prominent politicians in America who are members of Opus Dei. As Hypervisor in Twitch chat is pointing out, Bill Barr, former Attorney General of the United States, was Opus Dei. Yeah, it's I would say not great. Maybe we could dive into this more on a new day, but yeah, they've courted some controversy over the years.
every federal rule, agency regulation, contract, grant, regulations, and piece of legislation that exists. And the next conservative president will only be able to do so with your help. Are you up for this challenge? We think you are. Together, let's conquer the monsters in Uncle Sam's attic.
Just as an FYI, in case none of you picked this up, she's calling all of you monsters. You guys get that, right? You guys understand you're all the monsters in America's attic. yeah, it's pretty disgusting. It's pretty evil. And I think it's pretty clear after having gone through this, this is Nazi shit. This is a plan to overthrow democracy, a plan to silence critics of the government. It is a plan to infringe on free speech. It is a plan specifically enacted to consolidate power in the executive branch. Probably the long-term goal of this is to consolidate so much power in the executive branch that you don't need the other ones.